You got packets, you did.
Thank you. I like that Friday thing.
Oh, yeah?
All right, everybody would join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, everybody. Good morning.
Good morning.
Everybody's had a moment to take a look at the agenda. Is there any deletions, corrections, or additions? I have none.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
There's been a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next on the agenda is to approve January 31st, 2022 Monday minutes.
I read them, and I thought they looked presented very well. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second that motion.
There's been a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. First item up on the agenda is treasurer fiscal year 23 budget review. Good morning, Lisa. Good morning. Did everyone get a copy of it? Yep. Okay, perfect. We can go through each line if you like, or I can just sum it up. The revenues as far as motor vehicle, I did lower it a little bit this year because with continuous counties, I'm not for sure how that's going to affect our motor vehicle or driver's license. If someone can go to another county to renew their driver's license and they're able to renew or do their title transfers, they may do that also. So I just was caution in the wind and lowered it by a little bit. We've usually, our revenue was higher than what we budgeted for anyway, but I just wanted to make sure that we had that basis covered on that one. It's always happier when you have more than less, so I went with that. As far as that, I did take out tax sale deed fees because we haven't really done a deed for a tax sale for a while. And then otherwise kind of maintained the same on those. When it came down to the expenses, the only adjustments I've ever made on those were the salaries, which were approved by the board for the percentages of the increase of the salaries. And then I did take off the mileage for driver's license, employee mileage and substitutes, because if we do go to a meeting for driver's license, DOT usually covers that. So I felt there was no reason to have that in my budget since we don't use that expense. And then the dues and members fees underneath the treasurer's management services, the very last one on page 2, I took that $400 out of that also because in past history, we never used that either. So I took that out. Any questions?
Well, I'm just looking through this and this does not match what we.
No, because when I gave it to you, I had a higher insurance in there. And I also had a difference in the salaries. The salary was different than when we talked about it originally. That's why Courtney sent out the new one for you to overlook.
Okay.
Okay,
Well,
this is actually tighter. It's less than it was when I gave it to you.
and I think there's a
Yes.
difference in salary, which she made adjustment, because when I figured this, I caught over the weekend, we had a little special a bit ago. But I mean, it showed like it had a -3%. And I was kind of wanting to know what kind of magic pen you use, because if you give them a 6.48% raise, how that works. But I think
I
that-
was taught when, well, handed down, they always said, put a little bit in there just in case for human errors, in case I do something wrong or something changes. So there would be like, she thought it was like 20,000, but you take that divided by 7 people, that's $3,000 per person per year for adjustments in case there's something different in tax, FICA, insurance. That's how that went. But we narrowed it down to the penny. So
Right. That's what it should be.
Yeah, and like I said, I just did how I was told.
I know, like I said, I kind of was scratching my head there this weekend, but I kind of answered that, so.
Well, it's hard when we have different people coming out of different areas and
Yeah.
you don't know which one,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it appears like you shifted some of yours around too, a little bit. I see the salaries from different departments.
Yeah, because like, that's what the discussion was in the past. We had people went from clerks to, now they're deputies, administrative assistants, so they moved around from one position to, and they moved up to different
Well, and I'm
positions.
talking about in different parts of this budget.
So this might, why do we do it that way? The salaries out of different lines. Why can't it just be?
Yeah, I think you look at the primary duties, like in Lisa's office, the gals that are doing driver's license are coming out of 8101. The ones that are doing more administrative are 9020, and the ones that are doing more motor vehicle are 8100.
Basically departmentalized. within the
Yeah, and I
department.
know like they do, a lot of your girls do multiple things, but I think it's just what's their job title, what's the majority of their work.
Yeah.
So it's all comes out of the same pool, but it is split out by the function. So when you look at the budget, there's line items specific for that.
Sheriff's Department's the same way, the administrative people. I mean, it's confusing to me to try to understand it.
It is a confusing piece, because to me, you would just have one, this is what we pay in
This is
budget.
the department and this is the
Yeah.
umbrella, yeah.
Yeah, and you can blame the state because they're the ones that tell us what the numbers are.
How you
gonna
have to
be.
do it.
And
Why can't you fix it?
I don't make legislation.
Well, in this one, it's all out of general basic.
Yeah, it's the
Where
same.
some of
it's
them
a-
you have
Yeah.
rural
Yeah.
and supplemental.
Do you have any more questions? If not, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have Carroll County Soil and Water Fiscal Year 23 funding request. Good morning.
Good morning.
You guys come up to the table if you'd like.
Well, good morning, all. Bear with me. This is kind of more of a new deal for me to be the head runner here, but basically, what we're doing is asking for a little help with our Soil and Water Commission. Just for the additional things that we do, which are, comes down to, we kind of oversee all of the soil and water as far as the basics of what needs to be done. We do water sampling. That's one of the things that we've done in the past. Been a little bit of a strange year this year. We didn't have the water flowing that we've had in the past, so we more or less stopped doing the sampling through the winter because there isn't enough water flow. But we will start that back up again once we get into the spring and take the samples. And hopefully that in the future, we can use that for different items that we need to as a county, as a district, soil and water, to look at and see where the problems are at and what we can do to fix those problems. We also support the farm biologists with some of their programmings and what they do as far as tree plantings and grasses, the CRP and so forth like that. That is a unit that isn't 100% under the NRCS, but that is something that falls under them and also us as commissioners to support. Scholarships is another thing that we do with the high school seniors. It's open to anyone. The main thing that we're looking for is that they go into an agricultural or natural resource type of job and schooling and so forth like that. Every year we support and present 2 scholarships to 2 seniors. And they actually don't get their award until after their first semester. So they're interested, we know they're gonna stay and so forth like that. So another thing that we work with is EQIP. If you remember last year, we kind of talked about that. It goes about with the cattle barns and so forth. And we are, we're just part of the arm, I guess, on how they award a funding for it. I was talking to Jeff this morning a little bit on it. We have one producer that has put up 3 barns in one barn for the last 3 years, and this year is his last year to put up his last barn. We also have a couple that are out there that have not been funded yet. They're ranking pretty high, and Jeff feels that they will get funded. What that does for the county, again, that brings in a little more tax money and so forth like that. So again, this year, as in the past, we've asked for $5,000, and that's what we would like to present again today. My helper here is Deb Donami, in case anybody knows. I'm John Coster. I am the vice chair, and she is the treasurer of the board. So, you had anything there?
No, I just probably want to add that a lot of that, when we talk about water testing and things, is for the nitrates in the water. We do 2 or 3 different, 4 different sites. And when we are doing it, we can see where there might be higher concentrations. We can't necessarily narrow it down, but it helps us target producers, not target them, but it helps us look at an area specifically and see where the problem is and what we can try to encourage the landowners and farmers what to do about it. So that's what a lot of the water testing does. And like in the cattle barns and everything, it keeps a lot of those nitrates under control of the farmers so that they can utilize the waste and everything, put it back out on the fields where it belongs rather than concentrating into tile lines or streams. Okay, that's kind of what
Another thing that kind of one of my pet peeves is trying to get education out there and get the young people involved. Today, we said with bigger farmers and so forth like that. And a lot of the answers that you kind of hear sometimes is, well, that isn't what my father did, or that isn't what my grandfather did. We've got to get in some more education to get some of these younger people involved in soil conservation. And I think this funding will help with that education too. So.
I think, and to back up your concern about getting younger people involved, that's across the board and different, just so many different segments. It's just people stepping up and being volunteers. I mean, it's a busy world that people live in right now, but I agree with you. People need to step up, care, volunteer, be educated.
And we're having a hard time finding people to run for these boards. You know, it's a high.
Really, we don't have any trouble with that.
You don't? No? Well, maybe maybe it's a pay scale.
No.
I'm not sure
It's a
if that's what the deal is.
It's a problem.
It is
It
a
is.
problem.
The youngest board member, he's not really that young anymore either.
Well, there's a lot of us that ain't that young.
Well, I'm talking about the youngest one on.
Yeah, I understand that. We always.
Yeah, 40.
Right, 40 is pretty young though.
I know it is to me, compared to me, but
So, but we're glad to see at least we do have a younger one on there.
I
And
think he should get the big one on his knees.
really, yeah.
I'd like to see that.
And he's out on the farm, working on the ground and everything, and he understands a lot. So that's what really good. Okay.
Does anybody have any more questions?
The water testing, as I recall, you're doing that on the middle and south, or just?
We do it on the, mostly on the, what's the north?
Elk Run?
No,
Not so much Elk Road, the middle, Strike Road and Storm Creek and so forth like that. We start at the headwaters, basically, and we do several testings down the line, so. If there's, I guess if there's a suggestion of where else we should do a test, that might not be a bad idea too. We can get a better consensus around the county. There's a lot of structures that put in the past and so forth like that, but there's more that needs to be done. And get people aware of what's going on. We don't want to become California, but we need to start looking at what we're doing as a whole.
well, one figure that really surprised me in going through this is your cover crop. It's really surprised to see that many acres.
Well, I think that is something that is coming on a little stronger and stronger every year. First timers, as far as funding through the state, and that first timers can get $25 an acre cost share. And anybody that does it a second, third, fourth can apply for another for $15 a year. Now, I don't want to toot a horn or anything, but I myself am a no-tiller. And I've done that for probably 40 years or so. And I started cover crop here about 3-4 years ago, and I'm 100% cover crop.
So what does it cost share on those?
Well, again, first timers, they can apply for $25 per acre. And then second timers, third timers, once you've, and they can go up to 160 acres. Anything above and beyond that is up to the producer. That's whether you fly it on, drill it in yourself, or whatever, and $15 for a second time as you go through. They don't pay for a lot, but a lot of times you can, I figure it takes me about $30 an acre if I fly it on. That's the cost of airplane and the seed. And then if you drill on your own and so forth like that there, it's a lesser cost, but it by no means covers everything.
But a lot of times we don't want it to cover 100% because we want them to put their dollars into it too, so that they have
They've
a
got
little bit
earn.
incentive. And then the other thing is like, the conservation practice doesn't always work great the first year. You have Mother Nature to deal with and the seeding and everything. So the incentive for the following years is to keep it going, like it was in no-till or anything like that. Once you keep it going, I mean, the first year, it may or may not work, but after several years, then you're really ready to be sold on and keep doing it.
Many of these people that try something the first year, they'll come out of it and say, it don't work. Well, you got to give everything a chance, just like anything else. No-till, it takes 4, 5, 6 years to really get to see, but you won't see the benefits necessarily in those first 5 years, 6 years, maybe 10 years. But as they do it over the time period, it does come to fruition. It does make a difference.
Well, I know down in central Iowa right now, they've got a Carroll co-op has been drilling and standing corn. Have you seen that?
Well, there's a means of a way to do that. It takes
Yeah.
a pretty good machine to do that.
Yeah, it does. It's a specific machine. And I think they're gonna probably reach out even up into this area to try to get some acres.
Is that through the program through Des Moines down to Waterworks? I see they're gonna put a John Deere, like a Hagee that they're gonna go in and.
That's what this does, yeah.
They're providing for the upper.
So you can go in standing corn
Well, that's why I think this flying is good, because you got a more chance of catching some of the rains than what you do later on.
When you fly it on, especially in corn, you look at corn plants, well, they're all leaves standing up like that, and you think that the seed doesn't get to the ground. I would, if you'd like to someday, drive by my place early in the spring and look at the cornfields and see how that was all put on around the 1st of September this last year. Yes, you catch rains, whereas when you're drilling it in, the earlier you drill it, the better off you are. But when you get to late October, you can get it to establish. That's all it has to do is establish. Rye will keep growing even through the winter, keep sending roots down. What you see on top doesn't necessarily show what the crop is actually doing. Great.
Well, thank you for coming in this morning. Obviously, we're right in the middle of the budget, so we'll make decisions towards probably in the next few weeks, and then we'll let you guys know.
But we appreciate you taking the time and hearing this out. And,
Absolutely.
we look forward to working with you guys too, also on anything that you need.
Thanks for what you do.
All right, thank you.
Thank
you.
Next item up on the agenda is secondary roads fiscal year 23 budget review. This is the smallest one in the county.
Smallest one.
How are you, Zach?
Not too bad, but yourself.
Good.
So, I do have the sheet that Courtney provided you, but, I'd like to start off talking about going through the DOT's budget form, just because it flows a little bit better for what we have. And as you have questions, please let me know as we go through, and we can go into line item stuff if you'd like as well. Excuse me, starting off with revenue. The revenue sheet, the first sheet there, it shows what our secondary road balance is, which is a little bit higher. We didn't have as much construction dollars spent back in 21 when I first got here. And that's kind of shown through on what the carryover balance has been. But as far as receipt from property tax levies, that is up this year due to the valuation of the rural property mainly. I think the urban actually went down a little bit, but due to the rural properties, that has gone up. So there is a significant increase there. The road use tax is projected to go up as well. The other item that you'll see there, number 5, is bridge replacement funds. We're looking to plan for a BR project in fiscal year 23. So that's a pass-through number. So it shows up as revenue. It'll expend back out when we do that project, obviously. So between those 3 things right there, we're up, close to $1 million in revenue between those 3 things, but a little under that. As you go down to the miscellaneous receipts, those are pretty similar to what they have been in the past. It's kind of by guess and by golly on some of those things on how much, whether it's sale of used equipment and junk, or even the fuel depot, as far as what that does, depending on how many miles are being used, how many gallons are being used there. That was pretty quick over revenue. Any questions on that?
Zach, sometime can you tell me a site or provide us with the road use tax pie chart?
Yep.
the road use tax taken and what's actually spent on the roads. Can you find that chart, pie chart someplace
Yep,
and get that to us?
yep. I
I
can
think
do that.
it's quite entertaining to read it, and you know, you think it's road use tax, it's not road use tax.
Yep, I can do that. Moving into,
Actually, I think you gave that to us a pre-budget, didn't you?
what?
Did you give that to us on pre-budget?
Not the pie chart that he's looking at, I don't think.
I've seen it once and I cannot find it again.
Just-
so.
I know they have a pipe diagram too that shows how it all
The
flows
farm to
through.
market and all of it.
Right, that shows
I
everything.
have it. I can dig it out at my house.
I know I have that.
Interesting for you to see it.
Yeah.
I know I have the pipe diagram that shows how everything flows through. The pie chart, I know what you're talking about, and I haven't seen that for a number of years about really the breakdown of where things
Yeah.
go.
You,
And,
you think a lot of money goes to the road use tax,
Mhm.
but when it comes down to actually the money going towards roads, it's not as much as you think.
For being a called road use tax, you think it'd be more than what that is.
There's a lot of fingers in that pie.
There is, there
And
is.
he used the word flow through. No, it's a worm
Yeah.
and it's a mess.
Yeah, that one is, you're right. Absolutely.
Sorry, continue.
As far as expenditures go, this would be the second sheet there. Starting off, basically, there's 4 categories here. So starting off with administration and engineering. We're up slightly or up a little bit in that category. Basically, wages, fringe benefits, and then some technology update stuff that we need to do to kind of keep up with where we're at. Second line, or the second group there is construction. That one's significantly up. The main reason due to that BR bridge, that pass-through bridge, that's an extra 500,000. And then I did stick an extra sheet behind the last sheet in there that shows basically the 4 places we're looking to spend those construction dollars for fiscal year 23. One is that BR bridge. 2 is E19 HMA overlay. This would be up by Lanesboro. Just to the east, southeast of Lanesboro, there's 2 miles of asphalt that are really deteriorating. If that's the area that we did some earth shouldering last year. So we're hoping to get that done this summer. And then the next 2 items are referred to M66 with getting the right of way bought and then getting earth shoulders put on down there. So
Where's that 66?
south of Manning.
We've been wanting to get that done.
It's-
Widened for a long time.
Yeah, it's been on the list, on the queue to do, and we'll probably have to start over again a little bit. I know Dave had gotten to the point where appraisals were done, but we're gonna have to go through that process again and.
For right of ways.
Correct. But as far as I know, from what everything I heard from the guys, everybody was in favor for it down there. I don't think there was any issues with that, but we'll confirm that and continue down the path, so. Goes into roadway maintenance. Obviously, the big line item there is 711. That's where all your blading of roads, granular surfacing, a whole bunch of stuff goes into that line item. That one's up significantly, mostly due to wages and fringe benefits there. But we're also increasing some things. We're a little bit more patching this year, as well as like driveways or entrances that we build fall into that category. So that's probably the most significant, I guess, ups in that roadway maintenance category. As far as general roadway, again, wages up there as well, but there are also parts, gas and diesel, CMP pipe, all the materials. The increases we're seeing in those material prices are significant. So hopefully we'll level out at some point, but for the short term, there's definitely some increases that we'll have to absorb in there. gets down to total expenditures. We're up roughly $1 million in expenditures. Most of that equates into that same up that we were in the revenue, on the revenue side as well. A big part of it is the construction, up about $640,000 more in construction. So that's a big chunk of that. And again, I hope we can get all of that work accomplished. That's the goal, but just like procuring equipment and everything else, the timeline to procure equipment, how long you have to get it quoted out is quite substantial. So we'll see when we can actually get stuff coming in on that front as well. So that's I guess our best guess as far as how we're trying to use those funds.
As far as new equipment, we're talking two graders, two trucks. and a grader.
Two trucks and a grader is what I'm hoping for in fiscal year 23, and I'm working on getting the specs finalized for that, for the trucks. Again, it's just equipment's out so far that I don't know if I'll even be able to get it before the end of fiscal year 23 at this point. I hope that we can, but it's
3 pieces, 842,000.
it's about 800,000. And we have some other dollars in there for, there's some labor that goes into when we work on our trucks, like we build our own truck as far as putting the box on, running all the hydraulics and all that stuff. So there's also some labor involved with our own guys to get it into service, I'll put it that way, as well as miscellaneous parts.
And the wages are all 5.5.
Yep. Correct.
Questions?
I know that was a quick run through. I guess any more questions or line item questions on where we're at on anything that you would like to talk about?
Can we ask the question about the FEMA dollars, correct? You have not received those?
For
Didn't secondary roads receive some FEMA money?
yes, that's all been received. That's
Okay.
all been taken care of. It's been closed out and audited, and we're
Perfect.
100% good on those.
Does anybody else have any more questions?
Zach, I see that, is the state of Iowa gonna attack that Highway 30 bridge out by the airport on Storm Creek this year?
I don't think it's this year. I think it was fiscal year 25, possibly. Don't quote me on that, but
We're
I
gonna have quite a bit of traffic reroute on top of our.
possibly, they've talked to me about that, and they wanted to do a route northerly from Glidden and around.
Okay.
What that does is that puts us going down the Litterdale pavement there to come back. There's a bridge there that is a 1-lane
I was
bridge.
gonna say that's kind of a.
And I've had their conversation with them, and they weren't real keen on that. I don't think they wanted to pay for us to put in a new bridge for us. So my guess is that they will probably try to use traffic signals and try to do that bridge half width
do a
and keep
Split bridge.
it open.
Yeah.
That's the last I heard. They were just trying to get a preliminary plan put together since it's in fiscal year 25, like I said. So they may choose to do something different yet, but that's the communication I've had with them.
I kind of heard that it was out in the future, and I was kind of concerned with that because I know that bridge is
Right,
pretty tight.
right. So that's the last communication I've had with them, I guess. I assume that's the path they're gonna go down, but as it gets closer to 25, I'm sure they'll be talking to us if
Guess
it's
we're
something different.
more than open to them if they want to repair that bridge for us.
That'd be fine.
Quick question about fuel depot, taking it above ground, no plans.
Not in fiscal year 23. That's a conversation that I know Paul and I are gonna try to start having that conversation as far as what it would take, just what's feasible, what's not. And then obviously we'll have to come to all the players at the table and find out what everybody else wants, whether it's, we want to continue the same arrangement path that we are.
Well, yeah, we had that conversation when Dave was here, and that it was a good conversation. I think everybody wanted to participate at that time. That may have changed.
Yeah, it's no big deal. I
But-
spoke about it once.
Correct.
But
Yep.
yeah, I think that's something that we need to kind of get up on the burner a little bit higher, because we're already past the 30-year life expectancy of that.
Yep.
And running on a little bit of borrowed time there, so it'd be nice to be a little proactive rather than try to be reactive on that one.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you have the control mechanism to monitor that, so.
Yep, and so everything's working well. I mean, knock on wood, wherever I can find some, but everything's going well right now. I mean, we do need to be planning for what we're gonna do in the future, but as of right now, things are working well.
Going back to what you were saying, all the participants that are in there now are still willing to participate, right?
They were that in the past. Now with, I think the city's picked up an electrical vehicle since then. I don't know how that's worked out for them. I don't know if they're continuing to look at that path. School, I would assume that they're gonna stay right where they're at. I don't think they have many choices on the larger buses. So,
And I don't think those electrical things are gonna be, that's not gonna all change all overnight.
no, but I don't know if they're gonna continue to look down that path, and they're gonna be looking 25 years out when they make that investment too, so.
All right, any more questions? All right, thanks, Zach.
Thank you.
You also have to do approve secondary roads union agreement.
Real quick.
We got weeds too.
Yeah, so
Oh, yeah.
that's kind of a rural fund thing that they kind of oversee and there's no change at all to
Yep.
that.
Thank you, Courtney. I would have forgotten about that.
No, there's no change. So we budgeted 27.7 last year, the year before last, and for fiscal 23, no changes that I see. So
And this is for, all righty.
sorry.
No,
Thank you
Sorry about that.
thank you for reminding me.
We have a formal agreement.
She never sent one to me. I was hoping that she had sent it to you. Apparently she
I got
hasn't.
nothing,
I
so
I
I don't
know,
know how we can approve something we don't have.
And you know what, the ambulance is voting tomorrow, so maybe we can do them both next week.
I was assuming when I heard that it was taken care of, we'd have something, but that's why I put it on the agenda.
I'll follow up and find out where that's at. I mean, where the actual physical document is. I know I got an email that it was ratified, that we
Right.
ratified it, but I guess I'm not sure where Renee was at as far as putting together the actual document for the county to
You're
approve.
gonna call her, find out.
I can find out.
We need a table.
I think we need to table that
Table.
all till next week.
We will table item number 4.
Yeah, we don't
You should
have
table
formal
as much as
doc-
you can for next week.
Well, I'm not gonna be here, so you guys can have,
I've
you guys
got-
can
I've
have the
got-
full agenda.
I mean, the only thing we have on that is just.
We're gonna be on?
Tentative agreement.
John, we're gonna go ahead and have you go next. Jason will come up after you since you're here.
What?
I'll be darned. I don't remember approving that.
All right, thank you, Zach.
We're gonna go down that road, are we?
Next up, we have the county attorney fiscal year 23 budget review. Morning, John.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Morning, John.
I stay on task, but I was just I was pleased to hear about the stakeholder collaboration committee to study health. I publicly tell you, I just think that's a dynamite process. So.
It's a large process, and Stephanie, she said it before, it's something you really can't cram together in one little short meeting. You need to really do your due diligence on it, so.
Very good. Anyway, getting back to budget. Let's go to the top line, income. Income has been trailing down, and I'm sure many of you have heard from 20 years ago to today, the state has continually cut the commission, if you will, that the county gets. And that's a statewide thing. I would have got very pessimistic last year. And I don't know quite what's going on, but anyway, I took it down to a suggestion of 25,000 last year. We've already done 48,000 year to date. When I met with the two of you raised it back up because there's two things going on. Number one, during the height of COVID, new criminal cases were down. We were working the heck out of collection cases, garnishing bank accounts, you name it. So we had a lot of extra collections. But the other thing that has happened too, from 2 years ago when I became very pessimistic, the Supreme Court made some rulings about the constitutionality of fining people. They changed Category B restitution collection process. Sheriffs, room and board fees are in there. And now a lot of that is on ability to pay. And of course, when most people show up for sentencing, they don't have a job. So, you know, how that goes. So I really don't know where we're at. I think that 42.5 is conservative. I mean, it's a guess. But I feel bad coming in here and saying for all of next year, we're going to bring in 42.5 when we've already brought in $48,000 just year to date. So I think it'll be a better number than that. I think it could be realistically and appropriately raised if that helps the overall numbers look better. Moving on, I hate to dwell on that. Salary, thank you very much. Largest increase I've ever received. Salaries for others, my first assistant at 85%, everybody else at your 5.5. FICA and IPERS you take out of the supplemental. Why do you still have those in there?
Because I have to do a journal entry every month to move them, because they automatically come out of the general fund and then I have to move them, so.
Oh, then you move, okay,
Yeah.
anyway. Employee health insurance, I don't recall even putting down a number. Courtney filled that in.
What I did is I used what you currently have with no increase and figured a little bit more for your new hire in case she would go on the insurance. That may or may not happen, I don't know,
I
but
know,
that's in
I
there.
know.
That's why it's a little more than it was
I know.
the year before.
Well, speaking of new hire, JJ Schreck, retired Carroll police officer, is now the victim witness coordinator. I know, of course, I knew her when she was an officer, a longtime Carroll County person. She's got a great smile on her face every morning, at least when she talks to me. Very well connected because she knows most of the people involved. She knows officers. She has good rapport. And this is going to be on TV. She's meeting standards at the moment.
So she's gonna be the witness.
Victim witness coordinator. Dean Kolash retired. And we are truly blessed to have JJ on board. She's wonderful.
Yeah, that sounds like a very good hire.
You know JJ?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you do. Yeah. And she's a go-getter, a worker. All of them do. That's right. You had her hired Department of Health for a while. Yeah.
And she's very qualified for that position. I don't know how you can come up with anybody any better than that.
Fell into my lap. Absolutely. Yeah.
Wonderful.
It is. I left general office supplies the same, office expense the same. Postage and mailing, it's all zeros, now it's 600. Why? We were taking some expenses out of collection and forfeiture. I have the same pessimistic idea that the collection and forfeiture funds. Collection funds come as a, not the word in the Iowa code, as a bonus to the county after we reach a certain threshold. And which really, that's another story in and of itself. Well, if collections are down, bonuses are down. And I think that we would be funding a long-term expense with a short-term revenue, and that's in general a bad idea. So I asked that that be moved back to general fund, where it was longer ago than any of us can remember, because it's been zeros for years. Employee mileage and assistance, year to date, $443. Prior year, $215 during the height of COVID, zero. We're going to be back going to some meetings and things. Speaking of meetings, I've been asked and accepted the third vice president position with ISAC, which puts me on the executive board. So I'll get to go to more meetings. First one was last week. We did it by Zoom. When they're in person, ISAC pays the mileage, so that's not going to cost them.
So on that board has got some benefits that the ISAC covers those costs that normally pay on county level.
On the regular board, there's little limits. They give you like one night room. Now that I'm on the executive board. Katie part of the door. You know about
You
that.
probably get a free hot dog at the baseball game.
I should joke like that because there could be people watching this program. The last luncheon that we had at ISAC headquarters was quite lavish. Did they bring in pancheros, make your own burritos? Something like that? I mean, no, it's very, it's very down to earth.
Bologna sandwiches.
Not quite bologna, no, pancheros. It's a Mexican restaurant.
Yeah.
And they had a steam table full of beans and hamburger and some American cheese. Anyway, I don't want people to think that ISAC is not eating the eye on the hog, at least I've never seen it. Educational and training, that was down. County attorneys have decided to have in-person conferences all this year. We're just, I guess, with the governor's declaration, the pandemic is over. I'm not so sure about that, but legal and court-related services reduced it because it's been trending less than the 3,500 before, so I put it to 2,500. Legal and court-related services, that's one of those items that goes up and down. Sometimes we don't have much. Office data and processing, I left it at 7,000. We had a big spike a couple of years ago, and oh boy, am I happy I did what I did. The county attorney case management project, which provides case management services to the majority of the state of Iowa, including the Attorney General's office, is now part of ISAC. It was started over a beer between me and the Plymouth County Attorney Darren Raymond one summer, where we conceptualized the whole thing. I was its longtime chairman. I pulled out 3 years ago because I saw the cost going through the roof. And we've implemented our own protocols and we're doing it differently. We had a spike in costs. Now we're back down to about where we need to be. And guess what? One of the objections, architectural objections I had to the system that we were buying was some of the server architecture. They just had a hack a couple of weeks ago. And we just got a major data compromise notification. That will not happen at my office because we use peer-to-peer, no server, cloud storage, individual machine storage. So you can hack one of my computers, but you're never going to get into all of them. It's not physically connected. And I think servers are ransomware, these things.
They have their place, but they're not the wherewithal for everything.
If you got people who are a little bit techie, and I at one time was a computer nerd, who don't expect the software to just be easy peasy, fill in here, and they can operate in multiple environments. Forget servers. Get them out of your office. They are.
Accident.
Now I'm gonna get Facebook by all the computer people telling me I'm wrong. Again, we're dealing with 1, 2, 3. We're dealing with 7 machines, 7 people, all doing the same thing. But we can follow a protocol, and we don't mind that you're going to have to dive into multiple softwares to do your daily tasks, as opposed to like your bookkeeping software does everything, right? Everything. Well, that's the difference. Small offices, you can do peer-to-peer. Anytime you're talking about computers. Contract services, the same. Office equipment and furniture. I put office equipment and furniture over in collection of forfeiture years ago. I don't know what that $135 was in 2020. I think it's probably a claim that was submitted wrong.
I probably just got taken out of the wrong line item. Something like that.
I think it just was wrong. I'm still leaving that collection of forfeiture. There's a little money there. But we also don't buy much in the way of equipment. In fact, I don't think I bought anything in the last 3 years. I don't know what it is. I am about to get a new printer, but that's not that much.
burners last year, 2 years ago.
Could have been a DVD burner.
That's what.
You can only burn so many DVDs and things like that. But I'm also phasing out that. I sent some of you an email about it. We're gonna be the first office that's gonna provide cloud access to criminal defense lawyers. We will load video for their individual cases into a cloud that I control. The reason I need to control it is I can prove when they looked at it, how long they looked at it. Sometimes it becomes an issue in a criminal case. The defense lawyer shows up and says, well, the government never gave me that video. Well, I'm gonna have a log, I can prove it. Downside is it costs money, but I think in the long run it's gonna be better, easier, and less expensive, and much more efficient than mailing out DVDs by the truckload, it seems like we do. So if you wonder why I'm gonna have a major bill from an outfit called Box, BOX, not to be confused with Dropbox. Box is the HIPAA, CPA, Department of Defense, top-notch cloud data storage outfit. It costs the most because it's the best. So Box. And I'm setting up a Box account. For example, Joel Baxter, the defense lawyer from Guthrie Center. I'm going to buy his Box account with a warning. Joel, you don't be putting your private stuff on there because I'm going to be able to look at it. The reason I need to prove that you got what I sent you. So there's more method to the appropriate technology than just buying a low-cost provider. I think we want to be safe. We're transporting HIPAA data. You want to get in trouble on that big time. Speaking of HIPAA, we have a simple solution to most of our HIPAA issues, mental health files. One of the things the county attorney does, we handle mental health commitments. A lot of people don't know that. Guess where I put the mental health files? Not in any of my computers. It's printed out. It's in an individual file. They last about 3, 4, 5 days from top to bottom. Then that file goes in the shredder. No one will ever prove that I ever inappropriately released mental health information to my office, because that's how we have it. So that's my solution. Some counties put it in their servers. I don't know. I don't. Getting back to the other page 2. The postage and mailing is now over in general fund, so that's 0. Telephone and telegraph the same. So we moved those items back to general fund. They were moved bit by bit. Courtney, since you've been around, when did we start doing
Yeah,
that?
I mean, it was always a general fund, and then when we set this collection fund up, you would take, every year, it seemed like you'd add some little bit more to it.
Collection of forfeiture
Yeah.
fund was building up and building up, and I think 15, 20 years ago, it was up, I had like 50 grand sitting there. Well, you know what happens in government when you get money sitting there, somebody figures out they can spend it. So I said, well, let's give some tax relief. And we started taking some of those line items and move that fund back down. So that's what I'm up to. Oh, I've been talking a mile a minute because I am so psyched up about today. Questions, comments? Ladies, gentlemen. We're doing that. We're fine.
Soft for.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You've already been in it. But anyway, seriously, Darren and Raymond and I, over a beer up at Okoboji, developed the beginning architecture and what we were going to do for the statewide interoperability of film and computers. Sheriff, your tracks system works because Darren and I spent about $1 million on it. Do you like tracks?
Yeah.
Okay.
They use it for cars and
We, EDMS works. We were spending literally millions of dollars that we were getting from different sources. Because none of the state computers could talk to each other. No police departments could talk to each other. And we wanted them to be able to talk to us. That was the idea. And it has come to fruition. So that's probably the least known activity I've ever done in my career. And it's probably the one that I'm most proud of. So. Questions, Gene? No. Okay,
On a side note,
yes.
the opioid, we got you registered as the sign off. everything's okay there.
I checked back in the office for a couple of grand. No, I'm just kidding.
Well,
It's just
I know.
money.
I don't have a timetable for you.
No, I just to make sure
Yes,
the
yes.
ball rolling in
We're
the right
totally
direction.
signed up. We're totally signed up.
Okay,
That ended up being extremely interesting, a lot more work than I imagined.
And that is only just the first part.
That's just the first part. There'll be, that's the J&J. The other ones are, so
These are talking about that, Courtney, are we gonna do that by a budget amendment, or should we be doing something with the budget on this right now? Or-
I have no way of knowing
I don't
how
just-
much we're gonna receive and
I would be surprised if within the next fiscal year you get none. Just,
So you think it'd be after that? Okay, that's why I was asking.
so we can always do a budget amendment if we need to.
I would assume you just budget and budget for the revenues and then you budget for the expenses because you're gonna have to give it to somebody.
it needs to be a restricted fund according to the rules, and these aren't just
Right.
a suggestion, they're court ordered. We're going to be into opioid mediation. And throw a little plug in, maybe some of the Facebookers will like this. County attorneys are silently supporting marijuana to become a simple misdemeanor, a traffic ticket. Those of us who are very anti-drug, who kind of publicly get crazy at the mention. But we're fighting an unwinnable battle with more and more states having legal marijuana. Last Saturday night at dinner, happened to talk to a guy who was there from Kansas. Kansas has medical marijuana. And you go in the dispensaries with a fake card that you buy at the convenience store, that you buy marijuana. So it's, Kansas is wide open. South Dakota soon will be, Illinois is, Colorado, Las Vegas, just out there. They've got marijuana stores the size of a Kmart. I kid you not. I mean, I went to look at one, just I wanted to see what it was about. Amazing. We're not talking some little dumpy head shop, co-op record type place that we saw in college. We're talking major league. But here's what's not going to happen with this marijuana. It's not going to kill people, at least not instantly. Sheriff, we've had now 2 opioid deaths. 2 or 3. 3? Well, maybe it's 1, I don't know about. There's no FDA controlling the quality of marijuana. We're getting reports of fentanyl-laced marijuana. Young people to their foolish behavior buy pills that look like A and they're really getting B. And, the one death we had in Carroll, I was really hit me hard. And why I really got into it, I'm looking at the autopsy pictures and I see this kid laying there and there's a single tattoo on it. Okay. Now I'm old, so I don't like tattoos. When I see tattoos, I have a stereotype in my mind. And I realized this is a totally good kid who happened to make a very, very, very bad choice. Thought he was taking a painkiller, oxy, and he got fentanyl and it killed him. Right here in Carroll. So you think about selling marijuana as a state enterprise, and then you think about driving the clandestine drug dealers sort of really, really, really into the shadows. And do that math and think about it. I'm not for legalizing marijuana. I can't run for that on that point, but this is it's a situation where we've reached a watershed event. And our sheriff's sitting there saying, would you quit, stop talking?
I'm about to shut you down, so
I gotta
it's
go.
okay.
Thanks, John.
Think about
Thanks,
it.
John.
I'm just saying, don't have a knee-jerk reaction to lessening penalties on marijuana. That's what I want people to think about.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, John. Always a chance to dig into my agenda. Thank you.
Next up on the agenda is Communication Center Fiscal Year 23 Budget Review. Jason Pingree. Good morning, Jason.
Morning, how's everybody doing today?
Good, how are you?
Good. For the lead to Jason on this. Everybody's got a copy of
Yep.
The proposed budgets and the packet. So first time coming before the Board of Supervisors with Communications Center. Traditionally, this has been a meeting that's always been had with the Communications Commission. And last year, a conversation started off that eventually led to a new agreement with the city of Carroll, resulted in a change to the Communications Commissioner, a dissolution of it. And so starting in the next budget year, the city of Carroll will be contributing a flat fee for their contribution to the comm center budget. And the remainder will be funded by the county. So that flat fee is $150,000 as previously agreed upon. So that is shown in the budget here. So the conversation that started us off discussing or changing the Communications Commission was the one that we're kind of about to have. And that is the comm center is in need of hiring additional full-time staff. We've been operating, when I first started, we were operating at 5 full-time employees. A couple of years later, we went to 6. And now we're to the point where we're really needing to reevaluate the comm center's mission and what how we staff it and what we need to do going forward. So traditionally, we did not have an emergency medical dispatch program. So that was something that I started in my tenure. And that's been a real net benefit, I think, to the citizens that we serve. We've got some real success stories. A couple of known CPR saves that the Communications Commission has heard the audio of. And in particular, the 2 that come to mind, one of them was dispatched with 1 operator working. And so that 1 dispatcher had to manage both the medical instructions as well as paging assistance and getting the ambulance en route and coordinating law enforcement to go and assist with CPR and that whole thing. And then the second CPR save that we are certain of, there was 2 operators on. And while 1 dispatcher was able to focus solely on taking the call and giving the medical instructions, the other dispatcher was able to coordinate the responders. And not something I feel comfortable playing in an open meeting for y'all here. I'm happy to share that video with any of the supervisors, or not video, audio, with any of the supervisors that would like to hear that. I still believe I have the copies of those 2 calls, but it was a stark difference. Gene and Dean have both heard the calls. And you guys care to say anything about that?
No, I would just agree with you that it was a start. It was a good example of what we're approaching.
Right. And you know, it was just what the 1 operator had to manage answering additional phone calls, talking on the radio, paging the ambulance, coordinating the location, giving updates to the responders. When we have 2 dispatchers on, they're able to very quickly divide those tasks. And the operator that's taking the emergency call can, look over their shoulder to the other dispatcher and says, page this out. So they are able to put the information into the CAD system. The other dispatcher is able to see it, and they can say, hey, CPR, get this going. And the other operator is able just to bam, take over that dispatch role, and the other dispatcher is able to focus on call taking and giving the medical instructions. So that is kind of the catalyst for why we need to do this. There's several other factors at play, and so before we kind of delve into the budget, I would like to draw your attention to the packet that I sent around. This is an update that I had done, that I did for this meeting. For the Communications Commission, we did this same presentation
an analysis last year. However, because of the 2020 census being available now, that changed the comparables that we used for this slightly. So some of the counties went up and down in population, and that changed who are our peers, I guess, when it comes to population size at any rate. And so what I did was I looked for the five counties that were less than us in population and the 5 counties that were greater than us in population, and found their comparables, and then pulled some available state reports to glean some information from them. So those counties are Fayette County, Winneshiek, Henry, Buchanan, Jones, ourselves in the middle of Carroll, Buena Vista, Mahaska, Washington, Bremer, and Benton. So of all those counties, only one other county is in western Iowa, and that would be Buena Vista. The rest of them, as you can see from the map there, dots the landscape north to south in the middle of eastern Iowa. So, so you can see the graph here that just demonstrates the population. When we start looking into the next page, and we start to get into their 911 call volume, this is a little bit of a moving target. We had Henry County, who didn't report at all on this line in their report. And then Buchanan and Washington, their 2021 reports were not yet available. So they were due January 1st. They are light with their report. I hope they get them in, or they'll lose some money from the state. But I pulled numbers from their 2020 report. So just keep that in mind. And what you'll see is I have a couple of caveats here. Fayette County, during this reporting period, they went through a transition where Oline PD used to have their own communications and PSAP, their own public safety answering port for 911. They consolidated with Fayette County kind of in this time period. So their figures may be skewed a bit. Next year, I would expect them to be different. And then when you see a county that's got a plus symbol by it, these are counties that I can confirm do emergency medical dispatch. At least in the report, they reported spending money on an annual maintenance for that. So the other counties didn't necessarily report that. Doesn't mean they don't do it. They very well may, but their report did not reflect any maintenance fees paid for emergency medical dispatch, which we would expect if they had a program. So their 911 call volumes, as you can see on the graph on the top of the second page, and this involves both wireline and wireless calls, and the state's in the middle of a transition as well. I expect better numbers out of next year's report because some of the wireline calls were self-reported. So next year they'll all be through the state system. We'll be more confident in those numbers. But you can see that in Carroll, we had approximately 6,000 911 calls. Jones County, slightly smaller than us, had more. Buena Vista County, slightly larger than us and had less. But then when we start looking at the full-time employees that they're reporting for their communication centers, everybody is above us except for Buchanan, who was reporting 6 employees, the same as us. Unfortunately, I don't have a good handle on, are they all full-time operators? Is it somebody like me that's a supervisor, more of an administrative role? But this is kind of what the landscape is looking at. And as you can see, most people have more than us. And
Didn't you say we have 6?
we do. I see that.
That
I
should
see
be up
that.
another.
I see that. So I apologize for that. So Buchanan has 5, and we're the same as Jones. I don't know how my graph is off, but must have had a typo there. And Buena Vista County has 8. So they're also in western Iowa and a similar population. And as you can see, other ones have normally about 8 or more.
But your last sheet
Full-time
showed 5 employees too.
So that's where the graph is built off of. So that's where the arrow is
But
at.
you do
Yeah.
have 6.
Yeah, well, including me, there's 6. So apologize for that. So that's kind of the, to illustrate kind of the comparables of what we're dealing with when it comes to communications operators. In addition to that qualifiable data, there is a situation that we've had a part-time position open since last spring. We've attempted to hire for that position. What we're finding is that with the low unemployment, when we're talking to people about employment, they don't want part-time, they're wanting full-time. And those that we did receive applications for, by and large, not necessarily everybody, but by and large, we ran into people that did not pass the background check. They either had a criminal history or had known association with people that are well known to law enforcement, we'll say. Or they had employment problems with previous employers that indicated that probably wouldn't be the best candidate for us to go with. And so we didn't end up with anybody that we felt like we could interview. Not that there was no good candidates, but the pool was so low, we didn't even conduct any interviews off of that.
So real quick, I'm gonna interrupt you here.
Yep.
In reference to the budget. So one side you did with no full-time, one side you did with a full-time?
Correct.
Okay, what is your starting pay if you were to add? I did some simple math myself.
Sure.
What's a range that?
Good question. I don't have the figure off the top of my head. We pay.
But you only
20
had it in one person, right?
Yes.
So it'd be $50,622 plus insurance, which is $21,967.
So
right?
my pay is more than the other dispatchers. So that's.
So
gonna
I
skew
can't
it some.
do that.
So you
Okay.
can't just do the simple math of division. So there.
So I'm
would be
assuming it's less
some
than that.
skewed. Yeah, it would be, it'd be a little less.
47 maybe.
Okay.
Somewhere
I just was
Yeah,
curious what the
I
number
was
is,
gonna say, I thought it was mid-40s.
mid-40s.
Yeah,
Okay.
right. I can get you that information by all means.
I just was curious.
Um,
No, that's fine.
So we did contact some applicants from a previous full-time position that we hired for to see if they would be interested in part-time. And the 2 good candidates from our previous application process, they just needed full-time and they weren't interested in adding a part-time job to their schedule. So this has caused some problems. So with the lack of a part-time dispatcher, I had a recent medical leave back in the fall where I was hospitalized for a short period of time and then out for a month and then on modified duty for a month and then came back full-time. And that created a considerable strain in the comm center, which is alarming to me because I am only dispatching part of the time. So the majority of my days are spent doing administrative tasks and taking care of that sort of stuff. And so less than half of my time is spent actually dispatching on the radio. So the fact that I was out and that created a problem was concerning. And as a result of our lack of staffing and part-time dispatcher slot, it's challenging to cover time off and we end up with dispatchers working a lot of overtime. And that's weighing on the morale of the communication center. And it's something that I am concerned about because understandably, not all dispatchers want to pick up a bunch of full or overtime. They have, they place a higher value on spending time with their family and things like that. And so those that do pick up the hours, the burden is left to them. And so it's just kind of a drag on morale all the way around. That is a concern. Within our schedule, the way that it works now, we have 16 hours every other week that are built in as part-time hours. By the addition of another full-time position, we would eliminate that. Those hours would be taken over by a full-time person, and it would allow us to expand the number of hours in a day where we have 2 dispatchers working. So the average number of hours that we have 2 dispatchers on during our peak hours, which starts to ramp up about 10 a.m. is when the call volume starts to increase. And we see it usually stay that way until about 10 p.m., midnight, depending on, the night of the week, and that sort of thing. So that's what adding another full-time dispatcher would do for us in the schedule. And we kept some part-time hours within the schedule in the hopes that we might attract a dispatcher from another communication center that wants to pick up some hours. They're easier to train, less investment, and go that route. So and with that, I guess I'll entertain any questions about it. I guess I'll add one other thing is that, emergency calls aren't the only times when 2 dispatchers come in handy. Multiple calls coming in for the same incident are always a challenge, like a traffic incident where there's lots of passerbys, everybody's got a cell phone. Every one of those 911 calls needs to get answered so that we can make sure that it's all for the same incident and we're not missing something for a different call. And so that would, I think, decrease the likelihood that we would miss something in those situations, because when there's one dispatcher on, they really have to make a decision. What's more important? Do I answer the ringing 911 call or do I get help headed that direction? And they have to play that game of making a decision as to what's best, because they can't calculate them. So.
Does anybody have any questions?
This call volume report, does that reflect any text incoming?
We do have text 911. It's seldom used. Usually, if we receive a text to 911, it's usually somebody that's hearing impaired or speech impaired. Those are the biggest users of text to 911. We find that, by and large, when people are in crisis, they want to talk to a human. They don't want to send a text message. So
There are some instances where text will work and calls
absolutely
will not work.
absolutely, but our text 911 call volume is so low that it wouldn't even show up on the graph. So
Very good.
Anybody else have any questions?
Well, I think if you have any concerns, I would listen to that. all.
I plan on going down and listening to that.
I think it does prove the case that there's a need at certain times. I'm not saying all the time, but I think it did provide, show a good point to the need for it.
Has there been any feedback from the ambulance service on if it's making their job easier when they arrive at the scene?
emergency medical dispatch? Is that the question?
Yeah.
So we've had emergency medical dispatch for about 7
they're
years or
used to
so.
it.
So
Okay.
I would say 7 years ago, that was the feedback that we were getting is the ambulance was getting better information. They were receiving more concise patient information. It wasn't the dispatchers kind of freelancing questions and trying to report that. There is a specific set of questions that runs right through the protocol, and it covers all the basics. And, in addition, it gives the dispatchers a script for giving pre-arrival instructions to include, we call it the dog door and medications, secure any animals, unlock the door, turn on the light, send somebody to meet the ambulance, get their medications ready, that sort of thing. And, so it's been in place for long enough that the ambulance had some turnover. There's some probably never worked with us without having the EMD, but so yeah, that was the feedback back then when we started the program, for sure.
All right, well, thank you, Jason. If we have any questions, please,
Any specific questions, or do you need me to go through any of the particular line items? Really, the main difference in the budget here from the previous year's budget is staff wages and the related, holiday, FICA, insurance that would go along with adding an additional employee. Other than that, everything's pretty much par for the course. Cost of living increases.
Do you anticipate with you reduced your overtime, I guess, on Well, no, you didn't.
So you gotta keep in mind that part of the overtime is also training. So sending somebody to training generates overtime, holidays generate overtime. So adding an employee tends to generate a little bit larger amount of overtime that's needed for that.
Eventually, by adding a full-time person, that the overtime should become less, right?
Well, it'd be interesting.
Well,
I don't know that-
that's what I would think. You're not adding, you're not making that.
I don't know the answer to that because we still have, it'd be interesting to see it play out. I mean, we're never using more overtime than what we need to do. We do everything we can to cover shifts first by not generating overtime. But the risk that we have is that we have a minimum amount of training that every dispatcher has to do. And then when they have to be gone, they're either doing it on their days off, so that generates overtime, or they're vacating a shift that then generates overtime. And the concern I have is that I don't know if we're gonna be able to attract a part-time person. I haven't been able to do it thus far. And without attracting a part-time person, I don't know, that's always a cheaper way to cover open hours, but without having one.
And a lot of the dispatchers down there get to be senior employees where they have quite a bit of vacation
Correct.
built up, which isn't a bad thing.
And I guess I would add one other, I guess, request here is that if the board agrees that we should add another full-time dispatcher, I would like to see us add it as soon as possible. Do a budget amendment, add a dispatcher. I know that we have another dispatcher that's gonna be going on medical this spring. Hasn't been scheduled yet, but I know that that's gonna be happening. And when her surgery gets scheduled, I'm not gonna know. I don't know how much time I'm gonna have or how much warning I'm gonna have. And the sooner we can get a dispatcher hired, we could start training them and hopefully get them at least to the point where they're able to be that second person on and helping to cover that gap. Because training a dispatcher to be on their own or to be fully trained is about a 2-month process at minimum. So
I'd like you guys just to kind of take Jason out of the equation a little bit down there as far as considered him an employee. You saw the work he did for the ISIC system. And he does a lot of that stuff daily. He's great to jump in behind the council and stuff, but for a 24/7 shop, I think we really need another full-time employee.
And you're saying sooner the better.
for sure.
Don't wait till fiscal year 23.
I would prefer not, because this is a can that we kick down the road. We probably should have had that additional staff last year, but the entanglement with the communications commission kicked the can down the road. And now here we are.
I don't think we're gonna make a decision today at this moment if we're gonna accept a new
No, that's
employee
fine.
or not.
Understood.
Just give the board a little bit of time to kind of discuss it, hear from Dean and
Sure.
Jean, and
Well, I totally
give us
understand.
the opportunity to come down and hear those calls.
Absolutely. Happy to
Yeah,
show them to you.
I
or have
think
the
that's
discussion.
probably the best thing for the rest of you to go down. and listen
Yep.
to that.
I'm gonna make a decision next week then.
I don't know if we have to make it next week.
Well, I need to know, put the numbers in, because I don't know which budget
Oh.
to use. We're kind of getting down to the wire here, as far as numbers to use.
I agree with you.
And I don't mind waiting. I have no problem with that. I totally understand that, but I think if you can make a decision on the 14th.
Can you give us a week to think
Yeah.
about it?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just saying.
I know it's a little strange with you not being here, but at least give us a week to consider.
Because I do have on the agenda next week for you guys to talk about nonprofits. Because I need to know that too.
Thanks. Kimberly.
Okay.
Yeah, so you're saying we'll make a decision within 2 weeks.
Thanks, Dave.
Next week.
Yeah, I think so.
So she can put in the numbers and we can start.
I think it doesn't matter if we get it, just go down and listen to
Yeah.
that audio.
So you two are on board that you feel.
I think we're.
Yeah.
Let's put it this way.
No,
We're-
I,
By not doing it, we're pushing the envelope. That we're, things could happen. When you say that, right, Dean?
yeah, I'm looking at his budget here and, for what he has spent for this year, halfway through the year. What he was, that looks actually pretty good, this year's budget, as far as, right now, he's on course as far as overtime is concerned. He's right at what his budget is for the whole year. At almost $20,000, so that we're halfway through the year. So obviously, it is gonna make a difference if you get another full-time employee there. Yeah, I'm pretty much on board.
All right, next item on the agenda is conservation fiscal year 23 budget review. Morning, Jason.
This too complicated.
Well, please do.
And I did already
Yeah, we
tell them
like it
about
that way.
the issue I had with trying to set up a new revenue and expense number. So,
Gotcha.
Oh, for the grant funding.
yeah.
All right. Scoot through this here. So under revenues, we're projecting some changes to our revenues this year. So I just kind of wanted to review these with you a little bit. Let's put that on. So this is, so the front page is the summary of our calendar year 21 revenues. And this is kind of the numbers I use when I figure out what revenues I put in to my budget. And again, remember, this is calendar year 21. So for this last year, the pages behind are more detailed reports of the revenues, but I just wanted to throw a summary together to just kind of go through. So looking at our general basic revenues, we've got obviously the 2 cabins now. That's what they brought in 21. Our East Shelter House, camping. The Ed
East
Center.
Shelter House was only open for 4 months out of the year.
We opened it in May, so looking at these, so just kind of some review here on the 2 cabins. So that's $43,634 for the cabin revenue. You look back to 2018 when we had that, just that one older cabin. That year, that cabin brought in $3,320. So, I think that's been a good thing on the revenue side. The e-shelter, that was a big project, obviously, but I think we're gonna see the rewards of that project. So it opened in May of this year, so these revenues are from May on. The old e-shelter brought in about $3,800 a year, so I think we're on the right track with that. Camping, we had our best camping year ever. So our total camping revenue, and camping is one of those revenue streams that we split between general basic and capital projects. So our total camping revenue this year was $203,134. So then that 162,769 is what went back into general basic. And then if you look down to capital projects, camping Swan Lake, 25,819 is what went into capital projects. And that camping split is just on our Swan Lake camping revenues. So we had a good camping year again. If you look at the education center, that's another one of those revenues we split. So 2/3 of that goes back to the general fund and 1/3 goes to capital projects. So total revenues for the education center for 2021
for 13,635. And then there's that split. Other shelters, like down at Great Western Park, we've got some smaller shelter houses, and just see kind of the rest of it there. So basically for 2021, total revenue for the general fund was 244,394. And then capital projects, and you can see down the list, the money we keep from capital projects, cash ranch. We get money from the DOT for the Swan Lake Road since it's a state park. That's just for road maintenance, signage, that kind of stuff. And then the rest of it, trail pass sales, they keep staying pretty high. Getting a lot of good response on that. So capital projects, revenues, 128,082. And then we get an allocation from REAP every year. And that's basically depending on what the legislature funds REAP at. Every county gets an allocation. So they cut $4 million out of REAP a few years ago, so that number is a little lower than it used to be. It used to cover right around 15 or 16,000. But so total revenues for 2021, 384,184. And again, that's calendar year. It's a little different in fiscal year when you split that out. But so those are kind of the numbers I use when I try to set what my revenues are, and they're kind of reflective of that. So what I've got, since we kind of know basically where our cabins are going to land, our last couple of years of camping, and then, the shelter house is a little up in the air yet because we haven't actually had it rented for a whole year, but I think we're going to turn out pretty good with that one too. So total revenues for general basic, what I'm projecting is 255,000 for FY23. Yep.
Education center, that revenue then gradually dropping off.
It's staying fairly consistent. It was down a little bit this year, and I think probably the shelter probably had something to do with it.
Yeah, the church out of it's really generous.
Well, yeah, that was,
I was just curious, okay. As long as it's staying stable.
yep. And like I said, there's more detailed numbers, some comparisons, from previous years on camping and some of these other rentals in here for you guys to look at too. But those are the basic numbers. And that's kind of what I generate these numbers from.
Will there be any, if I will gets triggered this year, will that change anything for the revenue side?
It could potentially, depending on if they mess with the formula at all, how that money is going to get split up.
I will. It's,
Let more where the money's
Go
going
ahead,
to
Jason.
from.
It's a Natural Resources Outdoor and Recreation Trust Fund.
yes, and if they change the way sales tax or is income tax also tax?
No, just sales
Just
tax.
in sales.
If they change sales tax in any way, that triggers just 3/8 of the cent that goes to.
So back in 2010, the Natural Resource and Outdoor Recreation Trust Fund was put on the ballot. The people voted it in, but the caveat was it's only going to get funded with a sales tax increase. Well, there hasn't been a sales tax increase. So now there's talk with this tax reform down at the legislature. There is a version in the Senate that actually includes a sales tax increase. The House version at this point doesn't. So, I mean, it
could be beneficial for you.
Oh, it could be very
It
beneficial.
could be very, these are old numbers, but I'm not sure how far back this goes, but it would generate $180 million will be available for Iowans. And I think at that time, it would bring $1 million to Carroll County.
For projects.
If they up
First on population,
the sales
Pardon me?
tax,
population.
It's based off. per
Yeah,
capita.
Yeah, it's based on per capita.
if they up the sales tax a penny and the first 3/8 went to Iowa. Going
Yeah,
that
the
route, not
only,
going.
the only thing is, and they talked about this like 2 years ago, is that, I've got the formula here of where the money's gonna go by percentage wise. But they are probably gonna change. Now there's some talk about changing the formula, but I believe it's in the code that they can't do that. Have you heard any clarification on that?
It is, but I think, if it's gonna get passed, they're probably gonna go in and change the formula, so. I don't know
Change
how
the
they're gonna
code so
do
they
it.
can-
Exactly,
Well,
manipulate
yeah,
it.
I mean, and the problem
because
is
they've got
that,
a different formula they're looking at right now, so, because like, I think they've got 10% on there for trails. And I know they bumped, the trails numbers bumped way back to like 4%.
It's gonna give you more income, but it's also gonna generate more expenses for you because you've got a lot of projects
Yeah.
that you're gonna have to eyeball, engineer. There's more to
Yeah.
it than just taking money in. There's more
Well,
to
and
it.
Part of
there's,
that thing too, is
it's-
they're thinking about, talking about taking a local option, sales tax away from us,
Correct,
local. And
correct.
I'm
So there's a play several different ways.
yeah, and there's gonna be a lot of discussion and a lot of back and forth before anything ever happens. And we've been close before on talking, and then it never happens, so. But basically, if everything stays somewhat the same, there is a provision in there where it'll be somewhere similar to REAP, where every county will get a per county allocation. What that percentage ends up being, who knows yet? So there could be some money that comes directly to Carroll County, and then the other would be available through grants and so depending on what kind of project. So not all the money will come to the county, but it would be available for the
Available.
county to use, or the NRCS to use, or whoever, farmers to use, for different projects. So a lot of it would be, you have to apply for a grant to get the money, which is no big deal, but it just makes projects more competitive that way, so. But yeah, we'll see how that all plays out. So if anybody looks through revenues and has any questions, let me know, but it's just, for us, it's easy to look at them as a calendar year, because we do rolling calendar reservations on everything, so it's hard to figure a rolling calendar and fiscal year, and so we just always figure our revenues at the end of the year for the whole calendar year, and that's kind of what we do. It's easier for us to kind of look at them and see how things are going. On the expense side, I do have on our admin side for salaries, I figured 5.5% for everybody. I did put in this year, as we talked last year, we did a salary adjustment for the rest of my staff. This year, I did put in a salary, and figured in a salary adjustment for a director position. I promise this is the last handout. Sorry, Scott. Well, and like last year, I don't. So basically, this is, like I did last year, I did the same justification. Last year, we did it for the rest of my staff. So basically, these are kind of using the same numbers except for the director position. Just to kind of show my justification a little bit. So as you can see from the top, we'll just go through it quick. Department head average salaries, statewide conservation board director average salary. And then last year, if you remember, I used a 30 group of counties that has similar population size, similar county conservation board budgets, and kind of a similar staff structure to ours. So you can see what those numbers are. What our current director position salary is. And then what I'm proposing is a one-time salary adjustment for FY23 of 10%. That would bring it up to 63,746. Still a little bit behind statewide average and stuff, but I think that's with 5.5% for the rest of the staff. I think that's a reasonable number. And then on the bottom, you can just see what the rest of our positions would be at with the 5.5% raise. So that number, that 10%, I do have figured in. If you guys are okay with that, I do have that figured in. If not, we'll have to talk about that, and adjust the numbers, but,
So this was part of the plan last year when you brought it forward for the,
well, the reason I didn't do it last
you took
year,
no raise because you wanted to get your.
well,
employees
just to
where they
not make such a big jump in
Exactly.
1 year, so.
And with what he did last year, I am very much willing to do this.
belong. So I'm totally.
Because he took care of his employees
Exactly.
first. And I do appreciate that. And the other thing I do appreciate is that you got down here what the current raise is doing to the rest of your staff and where they're at compared to the state. Those are good numbers to see.
Well, and I think it's just,
It makes us
I mean, I know,
better decisions.
yeah. Like I said, I don't like to come just with numbers and not having a justification behind it, so that's kind of my justification. If you want to, discuss it more, we can discuss it more. So in my salaries, the very first line there, I do have that figured in to that number, so. And then 5.5% for everybody else.
I don't
So
see
this would
any
be for improvement.
discussion.
That would be part of the salaries when we improve the budget overall.
I would assume so because you're overseen by a different board.
What was your question?
We don't
We don't have to take a separate motion to approve this. It will just be part of
just
when the
be part of the
budget's
budget because
approved.
we actually don't
Right,
oversee
yeah. It's
his
just-
board.
Exactly. Just an awareness.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah,
When we
you'll approve the
the
budget, which will be part of that, and then in June or July, you actually approve salaries again. Because they'll submit. So you almost do it twice.
Yeah, and I really
Sure.
don't see a problem with what he's doing right now.
No, I
What
totally
he
agree.
did last year.
Dean, you sit on the board. How do you, you feel the same way?
Yeah, and there's two ways that I look at this, and Rich, we went through this last year with the employees. You and I both thought that he should get an increase at that time.
What we said at that time.
Yeah.
Don't cut yourself short.
Yep, and so, but he left it for his employees.
Yep.
And then this year, he made up for that, which is just absolutely fine. I guess I would look at, Jason's position and the way that he's worked things out there is that you can make a salary and you can sit and just do the day-to-day stuff. Get the increases, but Jason's not afraid to take a little risk, to go out there, increase revenues by increasing camping and the cabins the last couple of years, the East Side Shelter House, he's generating revenue. As he's going, he's taking that chance.
He generated 21% more revenue this year than he did last year.
Yeah, and so I mean, boy,
He's not sitting on his laurels.
he's not sitting.
Well, and
He takes-
this
he's
board's
busy.
got to be, partially to thank for that too, because you guys have stepped up when we want to do projects and backed a lot of our projects too. So I like the working relationship. So it's,
He secured $900,000
Right.
grant.
Also, the private fundraising on that coming real quick.
the private fundraising, really good. We're up to about 280,000.
Perfect. And the goal is 600.
Probably about 500. Yeah, should get us there. So we've got a couple other grants we're still applying for. And so we'll get there.
I'm not sure. Meetings.
So, okay,
Exactly.
we'll keep this moving here. Like I said, if there's any more discussion on that, or if you want me to come back, and talk about it more, I gladly will.
I think we're ready to discuss.
You're good.
Really, I don't have a whole lot of other changes. I'm pretty happy with where my numbers are from last year for most of this.
There's a little bit of an increase on parks maintenance
Yep,
and
I'm
repairs,
gonna
just a tiny one.
Yeah, I'm gonna talk about that one. The only other, I know we didn't have an increase on insurance, but I did have an employee switch from a family or from a single plan to a family plan. So that bumped my, on the second page or in the
Yep.
employee group insurance, I did have that bump there.
What's the capital funds project on page 3, the 100,000?
Let me run down through the parks maintenance one quick and then so finishing out general basic here. Under parks maintenance, so we've got a septic system in our campground that does some of our full hookup sites and also our camper dump station. We're having some problems with that and we're gonna go in. It's a weird system because we've got 3 septic systems that are all hooked into the same leach field, so that's really not how we want to do things. So we're gonna go in, basically put all that on their own system, bring it up to code. And so basically this will be for materials. We're gonna do the work in-house, but this will just be for the materials. So I did bump parks maintenance up 10
Well, that's
grand,
for
but
septic.
that's what that's for.
Okay.
So yeah, so going down, really, if you
So
look,
the only problem is that we're hooked on the same leach field.
yeah, and there's a lift station involved and we're gonna eliminate all that. We had Carry on looked at it. And we got kind of a plan together that's gonna make a better system, so. So yeah, if you look down at that very last line, I guess after you figure out our increased revenues, our deficit spending is not going up that much from last year, so. And then in the capital projects, basically capital projects this year is obviously going to be consumed with the trail project. So on the revenue side, we have and other budgetary funds would be local option money that you guys have committed towards the project.
Didn't the city contribute the same amount?
Correct. So I think that
That's down towards the bottom.
Okay, that was my question.
separate those.
Because I have to do a transfer
Okay,
and not yeah. So,
is that the one under donations? then?
yes,
Okay.
yeah,
So the city contribution would be under donations.
Oh, that's what I was thinking.
because
Gotcha.
it isn't actually revenue to them coming from local option, it's a transfer.
Okay, gotcha. Then just our other normal revenues, trail fees, the revenues we get to keep. Land rent, the DOT, Swan Lake Road. Grant proceeds, so I mentioned we are applying for a couple other grants. So if those come through, that would be that 150,000. And those grants are for the trail project. I've got under the trail paving project, 300,000. That would be our private fundraising. And that number might be higher than that, but that's where I'm starting right now.
Okay, so say that again on that. Right now.
300,000.
Yeah.
That would be our private, the money we're privately fundraising for.
Okay, so that increased from.
So then, and maybe
the
that
day
one's,
Rich and I talked to you,
yeah.
Okay.
I bumped that up.
simply because it's going better.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Right, so. So yeah, I got projected revenues and capital of 793,600. Obviously, a lot of that is due to the trail project. Normally is about the same. And then on the expense side, we're gonna do some road patching on the road around Swan Lake. That's what that 20 is. And then we've got the trail project. So the 750,000 plus the $900,000 grant should get us to where we need to go. Yep. So really then, that's really, like I said, capital this year is gonna be consumed with the trail project and a few other miscellaneous little things, but. And that 900,000 when Courtney gets that'll be in here somewhere when Courtney gets that put in, so. But that'll be on the expense side and the revenue side, so.
Do you have quotes for the engineering part of it yet?
the engineering part.
of the trail.
Yeah, so we're at, I think it's, I don't have, it. I think it's 135,000.
So when will that go off the quote?
We're hoping it goes out to bid sometime in May.
And finish this calendar year?
We're hoping to do it we've got till fall, September of 23 to finish it, but I want to do it all in this fiscal year, so we don't get in that moving from one fiscal year to the next mess, but, so we're hoping it can start yet this fall, and maybe if it has to finish up in the spring, it could, but we're hoping to still do it this fall.
This is gonna be a concrete overlay.
Concrete overlay from Swan Lake up to Maple Lake.
And the secondary road's gonna help you knock down those hills, or not at all, or are they still gonna knock down the hills?
Which ones?
You said at one time that the grade was too steep. to
Oh,
get
on
the
that,
state
like-
money.
Yeah, we're looking at, our engineers did some extra surveying around there to see what could be done.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
Say what that was.
So we're, especially that one that's kind of behind the condos that goes down in Rolling Hills Park. Yeah. So we are looking at sloping that one out a little further if it's possible, and we don't get into, the issue we might get into there is with the creek right there, if we get into any kind of water issues and floodplain permitted, that kind of stuff, so.
And I have one more question.
That's right.
You thought any more about reservations?
My board is against reservations.
Well, you know, there might be.
Dean, are you on that board?
No,
I don't vote.
He's a
I just-
non-voting
I'm a
member.
non-voting member of that board.
I personally think that you could probably help better camping.
I bring it up. every
You
year.
generate more revenue when you have to park your vehicle out there on Tuesday to get a spot.
Yeah, but. the thing is-
Yeah,
You got a lot,
That's
a
my
lot of
board's-
people are not gonna go out
Let's
there,
gap
drive
up.
very far if they don't know they got a
I
reservation.
understand that.
That's where I get hear a lot of people.
So where would you get the expense, or what is the pushback from the board?
On the reservation system.
Yeah.
Basically what Courtney said. Right now, to
That's
get
just
a,
what I've heard.
to get a spot right now, most people bring out their camp run.
Thursday.
Probably a Wednesday, maybe Thursday.
Well, what I'm talking about is you go out to the group of people, they're not gonna go out there if they don't know.
Oh, I
And I'm-
completely understand, because
And I don't
when I go
have 4 or
camping
5 or 6
somewhere,
vehicles to park out there.
I know, when I go camping somewhere else, I like to have a reservation, because I know.
And I'm not saying they need to do all of it, just do a certain percent of it, that would help.
If your last name starts with M, that's how you.
Yeah, I don't know.
Anyways, I will
Should
help
we
you
just
here.
start
Jason,
doing
moving
numbers?
along on the agenda.
I still.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason.
Well, I think,
I'll bring it
and
up
I think
again.
that's
Helps with.
that's part of what's coming probably is expansion of the campgrounds. Who knows at that point?
Well,
maybe
That
something.
would be a logical time to do it.
Yeah, that would be a logical thing. Thanks.
Thank you.
Was Sarah dinner or was Dalton done? IT. Hey, oh, never mind, Dalton training. We are gonna have, if you guys don't mind, we have on the agenda next, IT department quarterly update with Dalton. He just has to run over this list and then we'll get to you guys, okay? Okay. Dalton, we can't hear you.
I hate when I mute myself. Sorry, guys.
All right, now item number 8 on the agenda, IT department quarterly report. Go ahead, Dalton.
Did everybody get a copy of the quarterly report?
We did.
Cool. Okay, so we'll start at the top. I'll run through a couple items here. Obviously, general courthouse assistance is just going around helping everybody with just little odds and ends, Outlook crashing, or just an app default not working, whatever. That's just kind of our everyday stuff there. Ben and I do Windows Server and computer updates, usually on Wednesday nights, if not on the weekends if they're larger updates. So that's what the Windows Server updates are for. And obviously we patch equipment during that time too. We did get a panic button put up in the courts. We worked with Feldfire, got that installed during October, I believe. We worked in November with our company, Carroll, on HIPAA compliance. Courtney and I and a couple other people had a meeting with them. We did get some phones up at the conservation. We're waiting on Western Hour Networks to move the phone number over so they can actually dial out as their phone number. But the conservation is actually connected to the courthouse phone system now. So they're able to dial extension and call directly to Courtney or me. So, and we're working on getting phones this quarter out at the Freaky building right now. That should be in within the next week here. Conservation, we also launched a firewall out there. So all their internet traffic actually is routed back to the courthouse. It secures their internet traffic, so which is a lot quicker too. So we did move the server from down here up to the new jail. That was a pretty big move for Ben and I. We did that like 5 a.m, so that was fun. Everything went pretty smooth with that. There was a lot of work up for the last year or two here for us to be able to move that. Had to disconnect a bunch of the cables and stuff that go to the old one. So that way we're able to move it. We did the election obviously in November. Ben and I always help with all the laptops, getting those updated and getting those distributed out and making sure that everything's working during the day. We did have to respond a couple times to a few different issues, but they were all easy fixes. So we updated the antivirus for the county on all the computers. It's just a new antivirus program. So that's a pretty big change for us, having to make exceptions and stuff for programs so it doesn't cause issues. Obviously, we've been doing a lot of work over in the jail. There's a quick rundown of a few things we've been doing recently. And this is obviously like in December, November. We obviously have a lot more projects we're running now on it. So pulled some cables. We assisted getting the emergency phone in the elevators. That requires, most systems are digital now with phones. So you have to convert it back to analog to make it work in like an elevator like that. We also had to make sure the state connection got over to the jail. So all their like their live scan machine and stuff will work for them. And then we had to get MediaCom TV obviously connected over there. We did it in October. Sorry, what'd you say?
Never mind, I'm just being sarcastic.
We did it.
Out loud again.
What's that?
Thinking out loud again.
Yeah, I was thinking out loud.
About to mute you guys. Oktoberfest, we did attend that for a few days. That's just like a tech conference where we talk about different technology and different things going on within the state with the state software, and it's just a good time. We have been working on some issues with the jail with their software. That's been resolved as of January 2022. They've been slow for about 1.5 years, and so luckily that is fixed now and they're no longer dealing with those issues. That's pretty much it. Does anybody have any questions?
What about the server room in the jail? When's that going to be fixed? The cooling system?
You tell me. That's kind of on Shive Hattery at this point. They're waiting. They did get like 3 quotes, I believe, and we're just waiting on them to choose one of those, I think.
So is the equipment in there in danger of overheating right now or not?
Absolutely.
So is that what you and Ben came in at 5 in the morning and moved?
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's the problem is like, our server didn't have any issues when it was down here in the basement because it has a nice dedicated air conditioning system. But when we moved it up there, within like the first day, we noticed it was like 80-some degrees within that server room with the door shut. So at this point, they tried the louvered door, but it still was 80 degrees in there. So we just have to prop it open until they get something bigger.
That's if I talked to Ken about it, it's not an operational issue for the jail at this time.
It could be for the county if it overheats.
Correct, but this is just a problem we need to get solved going forward. But the jail is going to go ahead and make its move whether you're got the door propped open or not, because that room's really not in
See
play.
if it works. You can try out that suppression system.
From my understanding, Dalton, I received an email chain, and I understand this isn't really on the budget side of this. From what I read, I saw the numbers. We're basically, and my only question is, who's paying for it? Because it was spec'd out, and it was a part of the original, what do you want to call those, blueprints?
It's got to be an email chase.
So basically, we're just waiting to see who's gonna pay for it.
Yeah,
But it's urgent we get it done before we figure out who pays for it. I mean, if that equipment's in danger,
Well,
that's
that's
my
where
question.
get some quotes.
Okay.
I guess whoever's responsible for it would probably want to move quicker than slower, because if something does happen to our equipment, then they'd probably be responsible for that as well.
you know, my largest concern is also just having access to that equipment. You know, when I was downstairs in the basement, it was between two keypadded doors. Now it's wide open, and that's what I don't like. So that's my main gripe about it. I'm not worried about it overheating with the door open, because it's not going to, but it's wide open.
Security door being open is what bothers you?
Yeah.
It's in a space that's highly, you're not gonna get to, but I still understand his concern. Anyways, enough of that. Let's move back to your,
All I got for that's all I got for quarterly report. Does anybody have any other questions?
Do you have any comments, Dalton, on the IDPH grant request?
No, the last I knew, I had gave them a bunch of quotes, specifically on what they wanted, and they hadn't really asked me for anything else. So that's kind of where we're at with it. So I'm not sure what they decided on equipment, since that wasn't up to me. They were just wanting me to get them quotes on my time and the equipment itself. So
I think they sent everything in.
yeah. So I'm assuming once they get the money, they'll start purchasing equipment, and then we can go ahead with the install of equipment. So
I see you also participated in director interviews down in Montgomery County. Is that right?
yeah. So actually,
that you're participating in that program, because that's how we got wound up with you, so.
yeah, and that was kind of the spirit of it when we went down there, thinking, because we actually originally went down there just to do an IT audit. So I went down there, you basically, we did that a few years ago before they hired me. You come in, you look at the IT network, you analyze all the vulnerabilities, you document them all, and hand the document over and say, here's the things you need to fix when you hire somebody. That gives the new IT guy kind of a roadmap on where he needs to go in his first couple of years as a IT director. So they were just trying to set them up for success, because in the past, it sounded like their old IT director spent 2 years and nothing really changed. So it was kind of a big waste of money for them. But
Well, the audit's a good thing, because that really helped us here. I mean, it puts a third set of eyes on your system, and then there's recommendations on what you need to.
And I guess that was my point.
Yeah.
I think that's a good program
Yep.
for all towns.
Yep.
yeah, and we this is our second one we participated in. We plan on doing more.
yeah, motion for the quarterly, no,
Yes.
no,
I'm not sure why I don't say that.
we don't do it over Dalton, he's special. Thank you, Dalton, very much.
Yep. Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon.
For some reason, we only approve elected officials quarterly reports.
Never any.
Yeah, and I.
Okay.
Yeah.
Information only.
Real quick sidestep, I'm gonna go ahead and move up Veterans Affairs since they're here, and we're gonna push down items 9 and 10. So 11 would be Veterans Affairs fiscal year 23 budget review.
I'll start out for the full-time salary with the 5.5 increase, it'd be 42,174. The part-time salary would be 10,566. With the FICA, it'd be $4,035. With the IPERS, it would be $4,979. For the group insurance, it would be for just myself. I'm currently not on. We would want to have that money in there, because I might eventually have to get onto the accounting fund. So with employee, staff, or child, it would be $13,497. With the Veterans Affairs Commission, we increased that, put that up from 1,600 to 2,000 because I wanted to give the commissioners an increase. They've never had a raise before, and I have a great group of commissioners who support me and very involved. And they go to trainings and district meetings with me, and like when I go to American Legion meetings at night, they stand up with me and stuff. So that's what we're proposing to do.
Gotta give you a hard time.
I'll go to my truck and bring something back in here.
For the general office supplies, we kept that the same at 750. Employee mileage, that's gonna stay at 500. Telephone and telegraph is gonna stay at 1,500. The educational and training, we've always had like a little extra money left over since we had that allocation money, so we lowered that down to 2,000 from 3,000. We had the veterans allocation funds, which we received 10,000, but that's not always guaranteed every year, but we've been lucky, so we'll find out next July, we'll get that again. Prescription medications, kept that, or let's see, lowered that one from 500 to 300. Since we look back in the past 5 years, we haven't given out any money for that kind of thing. Rent payments were had 1,000. We're gonna keep that at that. For utilities, it was at 500, and we're gonna lower that down to 300 because that hasn't been used either. And then the funeral services are $900, keeping that the same. Grade markers, we're gonna keep at 200,000. When you say that little
2,000
or
No,
2,000,
lower it.
2,000, sorry. I mean, if you look back, we had to make an amendment last year, so because we found a lot of veterans that did not receive a grade marker and didn't have family around here, so we want to make sure that they got one. So we normally ask for the 200 or 2,000. So for motor vehicle equipment, that will stay at 300, and then for the agriculture, horticulture, that will stay at 3,700.
What is the agricultural horticulture?
That's to pay the cemeteries tomorrow.
They township cemeteries,
Yeah.
they pay so much for veteran site to maintain more. It goes all cemeteries. All goes to anybody's got a veteran.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's like the churches. We don't pay like the city of Carroll. It's just like,
Oh, yeah, because,
Yeah.
there's some, yeah.
I'm not sure, but we pay several.
Yeah.
But they're not cities, they're like churches.
Yeah.
that we
Yeah.
pay for people.
And you're right, it's not the public.
So yeah, it's not the township at all or anything like that. It would be public, it would be the private cemeteries.
I think we pay churches.
That's what was when I run cemetery.
I'm not an expert on the VA budget, but I'm pretty sure we pay churches.
One thing, she was gonna reduce the funeral services, and I said, let's leave that line out of there. Because you never know what we're gonna get.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we take this in a minute?
Yep. We're gonna take a little recess.
Yeah, if you look at our budget amendment, that number from last year is right. That's in budget,
I'm just
so-
seeing where the savings came for her.
I think a lot lot of it has to do with the, she had some money left, no, she had some, well, a little bit of insurance, but she had some money left over, not last year, in 21, that wasn't spent, and we rolled that over into 22 to pay for this.
28.
Okay.
And that was like $6,000, and she lowered it back down to 2. So there's 4,000.
No, I
Yeah.
Okay, very good, thanks.
And I already told Courtney to keep that meeting short. It's a cool thing. The rest of it should go relatively quick.
It's got me involved, so I'll be quick.
Huh?
I'm the one doing the rest of the stuff, so.
It's very quick.
Thinking about driving Thursday.
I don't know if Scott will go, but
That's fine.
you and I can go.
That's fine. You can show for me.
Sure. Would love to. Driving with Stacy.
You're probably a better driver than I am right now.
Hmm,
What do you mean right now?
Cataract.
Oh, I meant like, she's a better driver than.
Just in
you.
general.
That's what I'm like, what do you mean right now? I mean.
You
Have you
just
seen
calm
these
down
cars?
down there today.
Oh, I don't want to touch that.
Why?
Because
She doesn't want to get sick.
I can't get sick. I'll get stuck in the Dominican.
Yeah, that's, hey, do you have to have a test to get out,
To
No,
get out.
to come back?
Yeah, to come home.
just to come home.
Take an extra purple.
Actually.
Case.
Let me tell you something. when the meeting's over. Okay.
Stuff a couple hundred extra so you can drink.
Well, I've heard that if I just,
Take an extra 20.
yeah, just tip the people giving you the test, you can come home.
I've heard that.
Really?
That's true.
Well, if the weather's nice. For 20 bucks, might be worth
Well, they said if
saving.
you have to stay. Price.
Yeah, price.
Hey, sorry, I had to get up. What's going on here?
You're good.
We went into recess for a minute.
We're good.
Okay,
We're talking about you.
doesn't surprise me.
All right, we're back.
Okay.
Alrighty, we're gonna move to item 9, approved city county precinct agreement.
So we did one of these earlier, and after we sent in our information to the state, they notified us that we needed to include that area that was annexed in the city of Carroll out there by New Hope. So this current agreement, precinct 2, precinct 3, they did not, there's no changes there at all. Precinct 1, you'll just read it. We're including the unincorporated area of Grant Township that lies in that area because they didn't annex the whole part. And the rule is you can't split a census block. So since there was rural and city in one census block, they need to share a precinct. So I described the rural area, and then at the very bottom, I'm describing the city area. So what we need to do is reapprove this agreement, get it signed, and then get it to the city so they can do the same thing at their next meeting.
I'll make a motion, we approve the precinct agreement.
I'll second. Those are a total of 6 people. Wasn't it? 5, okay, sorry.
Right. There's been a motion and a second. Any more discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Steph, there's a place on, I'm gonna have 2 copies, so they have to then sign one, if you want to sign the back of that.
Item number 10, first reading of the Carroll County ordinance number 35.
This kind of falls in line with the agreement. What I'm proposing is, we have our first reading of ordinance 35, and waive the second and third, because we're kind of running into crunch time. We need to get this approved by the state. There again, the only thing that was changed on the ordinance, if you look at number 6, which is on page 2, it's Sheridan Grant, Jasper Precinct. That area is where that rural part of that annex property is included. So we've got that area. Part of that is being included in precinct 1. So if you kind of read at the very beginning, it says that part of Grant Township shall include the unincorporated area of Grant Township, that's south of 180th, west of Noble, north of 190th, west of Noble, which is that little chunk there. So we made that change to the ordinance. And I believe what I'm going to do, and I probably should have caught this before today, but if you guys are okay with that, under that number 6, I think I'm going to put to exclude that part that we're including, just so there is no, because if somebody just goes and looks at precinct 6 and says Sheridan, Grant, Jasper precinct, shall include Sheridan, Grant, and Jasper, and they don't ever read 1, they aren't gonna know that there's a part of that. So if you guys are okay with it, I'm gonna include in precinct 6 an exclusion for that chunk that we're explaining in precinct 1.
I will make a motion that we approve the ordinance number 35 with the change on that number 6 to exclusion. And that we waive the second and third readings.
There's no written or oral objection to this.
I've heard none.
This isn't a public hearing either.
No, I just curious if we see anything.
There's been a motion and entertain a second.
I'll second that.
There's been a motion and a second. Any more discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Can we do a roll call since it's an ordinance?
Sure.
Roll call?
Houseman,
Yes.
Ruggles,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Miners,
Yes.
Shepherd.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you for that. There are these redistricting and re-precincting worksheets that we did, and some of the numbers have changed because those 5 people got moved out of one area and another. So I just need to have the chair's signature. We didn't have to have a public hearing for this. We're just making a correction. So if you want to sign these, I can mail that in with everything else.
So this is by order of the Secretary of State.
They did not like what we sent them because we did not include that area.
The 5 people.
The 5
5
people.
people.
And I kind of tried to explain that, those 5 people are in Grant Township, they vote in Litterdale.
Do you guys want to see this before I sign it?
Continue to have them vote in Litterdale. And then if there is development in that new area, then we would at that time make a change, but
It's nice they were overseeing it, at least paying attention.
Well, yeah, even the small stuff, I
Yeah.
guess. So, I mean,
well, and those 5 people may be happy that they are now can vote in Carroll.
Yeah.
It is a little closer for them.
All right, moving along. Item number 12, set public hearing date for fiscal year 22 budget amendment.
Yes. I'm trying to just put all my crap in the same folder, so I use it. We're getting to that time of year when I send out an email and ask if everybody has had any major changes or anything needs to change in their budget. And actually heard from a few people this go around, so let's go through these. I think the best one to look at is this one here. Makes the most sense to me. Hopefully you too. And what I do is I look at the overall budget and see if anybody's gonna run out of money by the end of the year too. So some of these are ones that I've found that needed to have an adjustment made. First one, right off the bat, supervisor, telephone. Went ahead and increased that. We're gonna run out of money in there. The phone lines in general just cost more. Everything's gone up. Speaking of things going up, I had bought a copier and a printer and it came in way more than what I budgeted. Because I kind of used what other people had used in the last couple of years for theirs, and they just have went up that much. So I'm a little short in mine, so I'm asking for $1,900 to cover that shortfall. Telephone, there's another one. When they redid the phone lines, all the long distance is coming out of my bill for the whole courthouse. Which is fine, it's all the same pool of money, it's just I didn't budget for that. And I also got a cell phone for the office and need to cover the cost of that as well. Attorney salary adjustment, we're making an adjustment because John hired the new victim witness protection coordinator, and she worked under the old or the previous one for about a month. So we needed to cover that salary. We were paying 2 people for the same job. Yeah, so there's that adjustment for that. Oops. I need to look at that. I think I got a typo. I can't believe it. Typos. That's weird. Okay, so I do have a typo. So the state of Iowa STEP program, we have 5793 in there for revenues. And, oh, never mind, I don't have a typo. I just needed to look at the next line under. I thought I shorted myself. What we're doing is the sheriff's office got that check for the Step It Up program. So we collect the revenue and then we just put it in his budget. We're gonna cover a little bit of overtime with that and some motor vehicle equipment. So that's an in and out type of thing. Here you'll see a VA salary adjustment. We didn't have the right amount budgeted for her salary. I believe she got an increase once her schooling was done or something, but the wrong number was in the budget. So we do need to increase that. Tonya, the VA. And then there was a little bit of a shortfall in the salary as well for the part-time. Following along with that is some FICA and IFRS adjustments with that. The next one is another in and out. We received a check from ICAP for vehicle damage of $14,224 for a conservation vehicle. Since we received the check, we're just accounting for that in the amendment, and then we're budgeting for that in expense because Jason will be issuing payment for that fix at some point. He's got an increase on insurance. He had somebody switch to a family and was under budget or short on his budget for insurance. So we need to increase that. And I'm gonna have to get out my little cheat sheet because we're getting into conservation stuff and he had a whole list of stuff that is going on out there. I did this so long ago, I don't remember. Sorry. Find it here. Getting close here, okay. All right, so we're on the parks and maintenance repair of $6,500. His explanation on that is they have a septic system up in the campground area that is failing, and it also affects the ranger house. We have it temporarily fixed to get through winter, but a new septic system is needed in the spring before camping season, and also bring it up to requirements of environmental health. Was not an anticipated expense, so they did not budget for it. 2 other septic systems are also part of this overall septic upgrade, which will be budgeted for in fiscal 23 and fixed next fall. Major equipment, $4,000 to cover the difference in estimated costs at the time of budgeting to actual cost when the equipment was purchased. Same equipment was purchased as budgeted for, but the trade value of the truck, actual bid price of new truck and snowplow ended up being a little different than the numbers he had. So that's $4,000 there. So that covers that. Home carries need a little more in their insurance. They had an employee that switched from a single to employee child, and that's the additional cost that we need to cover that. Same way in the comm center, we had an employee that was just a single and had to cover her children. We got an additional cost there. Salary adjustment, Sarah was approved for a salary of, I believe, 23, and I only had 22 in her budget. So this is just to fix a clerical error on my part. Along that same line, we have a FICA and IFRS adjustment with that $1,000. And then the last one in the general basic is liability insurance of $24,057. That's to cover the increase of our property and insurance that Terry brought to us. So, let's see. Moving along, let me find. Under this, I can explain my own expense here. Of course, I can write it down. That's what happens when you do this like 3 weeks before you actually talk about it, and then you'll remember. I believe it's for precinct Atlas, but yes. Okay. Guess I was right. So out of supplemental for the auditor, I'm requesting $4,200. The precinct Atlas software we use is what is on all the laptops that are used at the precincts. Every county that uses precinct Atlas is paying for part of this major upgrade to the software. This is our share. So I would like to get that taken care of. Voting machines, this is coming out of local option. That was a board approved purchase quite a while ago. The equipment is still not here. They're hoping it'll be here this spring, but I just put that dollar in there. So if the equipment does get delivered, we can get it paid for. One is the 73.5. It's a transfer to the jail capital fund. Based on what I've seen and what I can tell is left on the baiting bill, that's about what we'll need to cover the rest of the expenses for that project. Trail maintenance, 50,000. Let me look at Jason's email again here. That is engineering expenses for the trail project. But that answered
your question.
Yeah, and that's coming out of his capital fund. Then you'll see below that is just a place to put the expense out of the capital fund for the jail to allow us to spend that money. On the other side of that, you'll see the transfer coming from Lost. And that is all I have this go around. Anybody have any questions or concerns with any of these expenses?
And you're wanting to set up for the 22nd?
Yeah, I would like to set this, and I did change the time after I heard that there was going to be a meeting out at Conservation that day. So I'd like to set it for the 22nd, but to do it at 9:15. That way we can maybe be out of here by 9:30, because I thought you said that started at 10 or 11. 10? Okay.
So we're gonna start here, then go out there.
Well, we can just have the whole meeting out there, can't we?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be Zoom anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd rather just start there
Start there.
and end there.
Yeah. I'll discuss more about that.
All right, so the date is set for February 22nd at 9:15 for the public hearing.
Motion, right?
Yeah,
I'll
I'd
make
like-
a
yeah.
motion. for that.
I'll second that.
So we're taking money out of local options to cover jail expenses.
That would be like what's remaining on Bating's bill.
We don't have any more in the jail capital fund.
Not based on what I've seen. There's no, there were gonna be about 73,000 short.
Who did transfer?
Huh?
All right, there's been a motion and a second to set the public hearing. Any more?
There's roughly about a half million that's been retained. It's every day.
Yeah, that's, and that, most of that's in there, but I'm thinking, from what I came up with, it would be about 73 short, so.
No, we paid 5,500 a day, right, or your week.
Yeah, something
I
like
think that should be in, but the bills except for the.
And just so you all know or are aware of, when we're done with this jail project and they're moved in and everything's done, if there's money left in that 1507, it's getting moved back to
Yeah.
local option. So there won't, if there is any overages, and we did get a check last week was that $22,000 for Mid-American Energy, and that was a rebate for the project over there, the new lighting and energy efficiency. So we're putting that in there, and it'll sit there, and anything left over is going back into local option. Then eventually that fund will be non-existent, kind of like the Sauk Rail Trail Fund.
All right, so there's been a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 13, we have fiscal year 23 budget review, and Courtney is going to do the county auditor, county board of supervisors, general assistants, and courthouse. All right, let's go.
I'm going to start with the auditor, which is Department 02. Not a lot of changes here. I did decrease miscellaneous revenues and the revenues for the general. Salaries are what was approved by the board, nothing extra. I did bump up a little bit of the overtime pay just because we're going to have a bigger election in November. So I wanted to cover that. We got FICA and IFRS to go along with that. Health insurance, office supplies I lowered. Postage and mailing I left the same. Mileage I left the same. Telephone, I obviously increased that. You saw in the budget amendment I was short, so I didn't want to be short next year, so got that taken care of there. Education and training I left the same. Legal and court, I lowered that because that we used to pay ISAC for the HIPAA program, and now we're paying Courthouse. So that was about $2,000. So I took that out, and I'm budgeting the 4125, which is what the other things are. Office data processing, I lowered that $200. Dues and membership, I lowered because we wait a minute, I'm sorry, the legal in court was not the HIPAA. The dues and memberships was the HIPAA. That's why I'm lowering it back to $250. And office equipment, I lowered that back to what I usually had is $2,100. Had an increase last year due to that copier purchase. So I'm moving that back down to $2,100. Let's see, we've got elections. We won't have any city or school elections as far as collecting revenues for. I usually budget for at least one special a year, so that's what the 5,500 is. It's just an estimate of what we would collect. Salary was the amount approved. I did lower the overtime on this one. The employee that's paid out of this normally takes comp time and not overtime, so I just lowered that. FICA and IFRS to go along. Insurance. Office supplies is the same. Postage is the same. I did increase the mileage and subsistence just a little bit based on what we spent this year already. Education left the same. Office data processing, I increased that a little bit because with our new equipment, there's more costs as far as maintenance and things like that. So I included that increase. Dues and memberships, lowered that just a little bit. Voting machines and equipment, I budget that amount every year in case we need a new laptop or a new scanner or a new printer for what goes out to the precincts. It's just nice to have that cushion in case something breaks. Election supplies, I left the same. Publications the same. Printing and programming ballots the same. Mileage, this is the poll worker mileage. I left that the same. Rent, I left that the same, and the election officials, I did lower that a little bit because I think I've been over budgeting a little bit. So
we were having a discussion about raising that.
yeah, they get paid $7.25 now.
I personally think it's time we raise that per hour as it is. What's the rest of the board? think? Who said on the recording?
We both agree with it. I think it's time to do it a little bit.
Really currently at,
725.
what we discussed taking into.
Oh, what, was it 9 or something?
I thought it was 10.
10?
Yeah.
And I have no problem with that, because that's a long day. A lot of those are older people.
It
$10
may-
an hour, that's volunteering.
It may help.
It might help to get more people.
It might.
It might spur on a little more.
Yeah, I don't have a problem.
There's a lot of counties that pay anywhere from 12 to 15. Yeah.
Well, or should we do that now and get it done and get it over with?
Do it and change your budget.
So if we do that, I'm gonna need more money.
Well, yeah, I
To pay that.
understand that,
Yeah.
and that's why I'm bringing it up now. All it is change the figure right now.
Yeah.
Now's the time to do it, if we're gonna do it.
This last go around, I had a lot of interest from people, because I was reaching out saying I need help. I can't find people, and I had a lot of people just step up and do it, which was wonderful. But yeah, I mean, you hear rumblings that it paid $7.25, and then they do get mileage, but it's still a
But they're
really
driving
long
a vehicle.
day, and they're driving their own vehicle, and they can come to
I mean,
training.
they're not getting mileage, they're not driving a vehicle.
Correct.
But I do think that we should look at changing that hourly rate.
And you're talking about the election officials line.
That very last one there.
The only ones we really have to pay for are our own. If it's a special, I mean, though, that's covered by the entity that's providing.
Right,
that,
so the only elections that would affect the taxpayers on the county level,
Just general and,
the general and the primary and any county specials. Obviously, it's gonna affect the taxpayers on the city school side, for those, but
Yeah.
we'll recoup those costs from them.
I'm in favor of changing your budget, and then you don't have to amend it.
That's why I say,
Yeah.
change it now.
To what?
I mean, what do you think
Add
per
30%
hour?
to it. Go to the 10.
she said, a lot of them are even at 12 already, maybe we'll just go to 12. Get it done.
Well, if you want 7.25 to 12, you're almost doubling it. I'll
Yeah,
just say that.
that's large, but.
But I don't have any problem with it, but
But I mean, you're talking something that's part-time.
obviously it hasn't been changed for a very long time.
I increased it
Yeah.
a little bit. I know Joan had tried to increase it a
I
little
remember
bit,
last
but
time we changed. There again, we didn't. And I hear out there what they're getting paid.
so.
Switch to 13 to 20.
An hour?
No,
No.
you can go to the 12.
You know how many
12 and a
hours
half.
they put it, you figure
We say 12. hours, 11 hours. Because they get paid about 100 and some dollars per election.
there? I mean, you know how much that would raise that?
I don't know, I'd have to go back and look.
Well,
She's never used near what's budgeted. If she put
No.
20,000 in there, she would be plenty safe to go $12 an hour.
Yeah, and our big election's gonna be in November with this dollar amount. So I'll have a really good idea after November, how much did I use?
So if we put 20,000, that would be
I think
adequate.
that'll be plenty, and I think even raising it to 12 for 22 and having them pay $12 an hour for the primary.
Still
I
enough
still
money
have,
in there.
I still have $7,000 left in there. And I've already paid for one big election.
So why don't we do that if everybody's in agreement, let's put
I think so.
$12 and once you change that to 20,000.
And I had it one time, and see if I can find it again, there's a resolution that the board passes that basically states what the PEOs are getting paid per hour, so I'll try to find that resolution so we can have a formal document on record of what we're doing, even though we're talking about it today. Okay, so that does it for the auditor's budget. Does anybody have any questions on that?
So you're gonna change.
confusing on the salaries again, just like every other department, where you got two salaries on one and one on,
So,
just a line.
Yeah,
item.
and Jesse and I are paid out of the general fund, which is on page 1 there. And then Emily comes out of the supplemental fund. And we can pay for, election related expenses out of supplemental. So we just, and that's kind of the way it's always been done. A couple of employees out of general and out of supplemental, so.
Maybe year 3, I'll understand.
And there are some counties that split the auditor's salary between the two, which I'm not opposed to doing. If we ever run into any issues with our levy being where we don't want it to be, we could look at that too, but.
Okay, so then we're gonna change that from 13 to 25.
All right,
If there's no more questions, we can go to the Board of Supervisors.
And then you're gonna get a resolution and.
I'm gonna try to find that, yeah. All right, so the board salaries is approved. FICA and IFR stuff go along with that. Insurance, I just adjusted it, looks like $7. I think I was just a little off last year. Office supplies, I just lowered that because we just give you ours anyway, but I did leave $50 in there in case there's something we need to buy. Board proceedings, I left the same. Mileage, I left at 8. Telephone, increased that a little bit. And you can see with the budget amendment, we needed a little more, so. Education, I left the same. Or we lowered that just because we just in general not need to use it. We still have some in there in case we have any issues, but. Dues and memberships. I increased that because you guys are paying for the garage bill now.
For the HIPAA.
Yeah,
Okay, so I want to back it up to that board proceedings. Is that every time we put something in the newspaper?
all the board minutes published, all the public notices, all the,
There's no way we can get around some of that expenses.
we only publish what we're required to, yeah.
The only thing I could
could
suggest is we watch, particularly one paper that the size of the friends in it. They charge by the column inch, I'm sure, so I think we need, that paper now is probably. The owners passed away. But anyway, but I think that's, we're stuck with those figures.
Okay. So there's
The only,
no-
only control we have is the print size.
Unless legislation changed that we could go to online, putting it online.
Yeah, or reduce the number of papers.
I would like to see if the board minutes could be just, if they were available electronically. And then still publish your public notices and your
Yeah.
budgets and stuff like that, but the board minutes, I'd love if we could
Probably
just-
cut it in half, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I gotta do it. I gotta do it. So that's the boards, not much of an increase there. Actually, majority of that's mainly salaries there, so.
So real quick, sorry, telephone.
Yeah,
So the phone that we have sitting up in that room,
it's.
oh, we
here.
moved it?
Yeah,
Do we legally have to have that? You're gonna say
you
yes.
actually have a phone number. There's a board of supervisors phone number.
Do we have to have that?
I think we've just always had it because if we were in a meeting and somebody wanted to do like a conference call,
We
have the
communicate
number.
with Green County.
Right.
Crawford
I was gonna
County.
say, Green County, we do
Yeah, we've had conference calls already.
conference calls on.
and
Not
when,
very often.
when your guys'
Yeah.
phone number rings, like somebody looks in the phone book and they said, I want to talk to a board of supervisors, they look up your number. They call that, yeah, most of the time you guys probably aren't gonna be here to answer it. It automatically rings to our office if it
Okay.
rings too many times here, so.
Okay.
Other than that, I don't know if you're legally required to have a phone, but it is nice having a phone in your office. Once in a while. But now with the whole Zoom thing, I don't know. Okay.
So does that 530 represent what each line costs?
No, I mean, that's your line, taxes and fees on top of that,
Because
a little long distance if there is any.
Why wouldn't you just
So
do that?
just kind of a,
if we're gonna pay a Zoom fee.
Which
all
we
year
do.
long, We pay, we try to trim that expense.
yeah, I mean, if you're thinking of that, I don't have a problem with it.
The thing is, once we get this thing changed, maybe some people will spend more time up there too.
Okay, but we're
I
not in
mean-
the cafeteria.
No, but I mean, I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Cause you know what, $530. A couple million or 20 million.
I know, they add up.
But the nice thing is we, I'm one of those people, if you talk about it, and then I'm like, oh, okay, so it's kind of in my mind. So when you
Okay.
guys are doing your room, if there's a way to cut the phone line and not have it, or can you share with, is it cheaper to maybe share with another office and just have, like you guys maybe be an extension of us, or something, that'd be something to look into. I don't understand all that techie stuff, but, Okay, so next one. General assistance, it looks like. After talking, I think it was you that told me that Chad thought the budget looked good. So I did not make any changes to general assistance for fiscal 23. You can kind of see just by looking at this where the money's going. It looks like a lot of burial and funeral, right, mortgage assistance.
I think if we look at this year's budget and compare, go back to years, this is working out well. We're saving about $20,000 a year.
Yeah, I mean, definitely saving on the salaries and the insurance, office supplies, postage, telephone, all that stuff. And I have not heard any complaints about them doing it out there at all.
You probably heard compliments.
You know what? I got one complaint. It was a supervisor from a different town. Didn't think we should have. And he's also on the board.
Okay.
He's
I think
always
it's
different.
serving the people well, so there are no changes on that. Next one's gonna be the courthouse. So, miscellaneous reimbursements for revenues. That's like when we have equipment here that we just need to get rid of, we usually put it in the hallway, put a price on it, we put the money back in here. So you can see we sold quite a bit of stuff in 22 already. I left it kind of high because with the people moving around and stuff, I have a feeling there's going to be some filing cabinets, maybe things like that that we can get rid of. I do have a request on this one. This is where Zach Niehaus is paid out of. Currently, he makes $27.72 an hour.
What was that, 20?
$27.72 an hour. I think you all realize how important Zach is to the overall operations of this building. I've never asked for anything more than what the board approved for him in the time I've been auditor. I don't know what I'd do if he wasn't here, because I mean, I don't have to worry about, I'm supposed to be in charge of the building under your direction. I don't worry about it if it snows, because he comes and takes care of it. I don't worry about it if there's water leaking in the basement. He just comes and takes care of it. I think we are very, very fortunate to have him. I think he goes way above and beyond. I kind of just looked at the city. They don't have somebody called just like the maintenance supervisor, but they do have a building maintenance specialist that makes anywhere from $23,269 to $30 an hour, or 30.6, almost $31 an hour. So, I mean, that was kind of the only one I could see in their job descriptions. They have a building official, but I don't know. I think that might be a building, like new building. So,
What about like school districts?
like
They're
head of-
building and maintenance guys.
Yeah, I could probably, but I bet you. I'm sure they get paid more than him.
Does
Just
he have a
based on
full-time
what,
helper too?
minimum,
Is that
very
on
minimal
this?
part-time.
Oh, it is. Okay.
And his salary's below that. So,
So what is he asking to go up to? Or
well, he did not ask. He doesn't even know about it. This is a request from me. I'm hoping to get him to $30 an hour, which would be an 8.2% raise for him versus a 5.5%. So it's not crazy. I just thought when I looked at the building maintenance specialist that for the city, I also thought, I'd like to see him at $30 an hour at least. He's never ever complained about what he makes or what he gets paid. So this was something that I felt as his boss, I would like to ask for, because I feel he deserves it, basically. So I'll let you mull on that for a minute and I'll move down to part-time salaries. So we do have somebody that comes in and helps them out part-time when it works for them. I did lower that a little bit because he just hasn't been putting in as many hours is what I thought. And then the overtime.
What happens when he's gone then, when Zach's on vacation? Does the
He'll
part-time
try to,
come in?
he'll try to get the part-time guy to work if
Okay.
he's gonna be gone. If that doesn't work, he'll let us all know and we kind of just take care of our own stuff if we need to, but the poor guy hardly goes anywhere.
Well, that's the problem I have. Zach is very good at what he does. Imagine if something would ever happen. to him, we don't
No
have a
succession
backup.
planning.
Yeah.
That's why I was asking.
That's
what
where
happens
my,
when he's gone.
Succession plan is grounded.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a concern.
but how do you can't justify it
No.
full time. When we used to have another,
We used to have 2 full-timers. We sure did.
one was,
But maybe we need to look at that because one body can only do so much. Now, I'm not saying full-time, but finding somebody.
And we did,
specifically part-time.
so when Glenn retired and then Zach was promoted to his position, which was kind of the plan, we tried to find some, and for what we could
Okay.
pay,
Yeah.
nobody wanted the job. We had a lot of people apply, but they just weren't unwilling to take what we could offer. They wanted more than like what Zach was at.
and fortunately, with this new building over here, the sheriff's staff is gonna probably take care of a lot of their own areas. which
Zach
Zach-
said he's not gonna, it won't increase his workload.
So that has been a good thing.
Yeah.
I mean, so otherwise, if he had to take that, I think we probably would be looking at
Well,
some more help.
I mean, I heard horror stories, like when stuff goes wrong in jail now, I mean, it is on him. So that may take some of his load off. when we go over there. And I had asked him, I'm like, do you think you're gonna need more help? He goes, well, they say they're gonna, do the cleaning and stuff. And I'm like, all right, let's see how it goes. What's the
So
worst that can happen? We
when the
realize that we
boiler-
need help and we just,
When the boiler's replaced, will that free up any of his time?
I think anytime you update mechanicals, you're gonna have less breakdowns, you're gonna have less issues. It's gonna be a good
Both
thing.
buildings
That
will be
swing
the
time
same.
is, I think, going in and out of. I think it will for you.
No, that's a good thing. Yeah.
I think it'll make the work go a little better on it.
Well, he's responsible for the maintenance on cooling and air over here.
But he calls in help,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
He's
yeah.
gonna do the minor stuff.
He's gonna do the minor stuff and then,
But that type of system, you ain't sitting there switching it. It does it all by the thermostat.
yeah, then you pay for
He
that.
does all the preventative. The preventative maintenance.
Yeah.
So,
Anyway, so instead of a 5.5% raise, you're thinking 8
It
point something.
comes out to be 8.2 to get him to $30 an hour.
He does put in quite a bit of overtime.
Yeah. Yeah, he does.
Which is just fine. I mean, I don't have any problem with that.
I don't have an issue with it. Zach busts his ass around, I think.
Well, and I look at what I'm proposing his salary to be, which would be 62.4, and then his overtime at 13.5. You couldn't hire 2 full-time people for those 2 figures there. So,
I mean, I'm not gonna disagree with you that Zach doesn't work hard and is dedicated to the county. I would like to see some kind of comparable, which would be probably a maintenance director for a school district of some sort. But then it's hard to compare that too, because they're cleaning an actual large building full of children. So it'd be a lot
and they
more,
may not work
be a lot more
full-time.
work.
They may not work full-time all year.
Yeah.
And I got.
No, they do. They work, they through.
You know what, I bet they're probably getting paid a little more too, because a lot of times they're working on off hours. Some of them are, I know. I don't think what yours, in that comparable you got, I don't think you'd be very far off on that. Well, we can leave it in there and then in the meantime, get a comparable.
Okay.
Does that sound okay?
So this number you have in there, is that the third?
That would be the 8.2%. Yeah.
Okay, so like I said, I lowered the part-time a little bit and the overtime.
Lunchtime.
Yeah.
Did you put an order in place today too?
Should almost order some.
Insurance, I lowered just a little bit based on where we're at. Custodial supplies, the same. Lowered the telephone on that end a little bit. I think seems like the courthouse went down and then like my office went up and so yours. Anyway, it's all the same pool, I guess. It doesn't really matter. LP, natural gas, I did lower that a little bit. I had a big number in there last year because I thought we'd be in the jail and I thought everything would be going well. Well, we've been paying for that. And I just kind of estimated what we spent so far and took it times 12 and came close. Electric, I lowered just a little bit. I think I was a little overzealous with the 45, but it's really going to be hard to know what utilities are going to be over there till we get a whole year in there with bodies in there. Same with the water. I just lowered that a little bit. Building maintenance and repairs, you'll see that was 107 and then lowering it to 70. That included the roofing project at the Fricky building. So obviously that's quite a decrease there, but back in line, a little higher than where we've been at, but we've got 2 buildings basically now than one. And the maintenance and repairs should be little or nothing in a brand new building, but considering the square footage over there, I wanted to make sure we had enough, and obviously can look at that again in years to come to see if we can lower that. Equipment maintenance, increase that a little bit. Extermination actually lowered that. Our costs are lower since we went with a different vendor. Disposal, I lowered that too, just to be more in line with what we're spending. Ag is plants and flowers outside. I lowered that quite a bit. Well, not quite a bit, $500. And then protection and security, that's the safety committee. So I just left that the same. You can see they're a little over budget this year, but he went ahead and purchased new medicine cabinets for all of the floors. The vendor we were using, we had meds in there that were 2 years out as far as being expired. And we went with a different vendor, so we had to buy new cabinets. And then the back side is the capital funds. Last year we had 15,000 that we budgeted for to move in there. Wasn't sure this year if you guys, we talked a little bit about it at our meeting about putting some money in there, but when I printed this out, I realized I didn't put a number in there.
So
So I
what
thought we
was the
could talk
money?
about that again today.
What was it gonna be for? That was gonna go in there?
It's just a capital fund that you could hold.
Like lawnmowers?
No, more like a parking lot
Okay.
or a roof or something. Yeah.
You know, it'd be nice if we could do something with that cornerstone
Cornerstone, yeah.
out there. That'd fall under that, correct?
Sure.
We've never done anything with it.
No, I mean, it's still sitting on 4x4s, you know.
Yeah, it is.
You know, I mean, I don't know. Maybe we get a quote on something, some landscaper to put some brick and
Make it look nice.
make it look nice.
So I think there's around 30,000 in there now.
Oh,
In the capital fund, and we'll be putting 15 in for fiscal 22. So we're gonna be
Can
close
you,
to that.
can you spend some of that money on if you were to do something in our remodel?
Yeah, any capital improvements.
Like if we wanted to have like an actual, like decent chair.
It's gonna be more,
we got those decent chairs upstairs.
Oh,
when I think of a capital, well, you could call that part of the project, I guess. Maybe
Okay.
your desks and
I just don't know if I could.
furniture, yeah. So, do you guys
You know
wanna?
what, if you're talking about that, we're gonna do remodel of like the boardroom. You know, we're probably gonna have some costs here that's not gonna be affected by ARPA money. Maybe we ought to put more in there. I never even give that a thought.
Yeah, I'm sure you're probably right. What are you thinking?
We've always stuck 15, we still got some in there, but I don't know that, I think
But we should say how much we have in here, do you think?
I was thinking there was around 30 in there now. We're gonna add
So I mean,
another
we've been
15.
spending out of there.
Yeah,
If
so
we've
that'd
been
be only
putting
2 years.
15
We
in
have
there.
not put money in there for years.
Oh,
Remember, because Neil said, don't put it in capital, it's more flexible in other places. Previous to that, money was like, maybe prior to Neil getting back on the board. I don't know, but
I think with local options, we've got more flexibility. That's part of the reason why.
maybe. But we
But-
are budgeted 15 this year, which would put you at around the $40,000 to $50,000 range would be in there.
But I always feel that putting low in it doesn't hurt. You got something comes up, needs fixing, you can fix it.
So we could, we could increase it 10, or we could leave it at 15. Or 50. I don't know.
Or just put 20 in there.
that's the number that I was
You're
thinking.
gonna spend that much in concrete on the west side, on the east side, probably this year, if we decide to fix that.
Yeah, we took that out of local option last year.
We did last time,
Yeah.
So 20. And
I
well, then,
mean, yeah, there's places to put it, I mean,
We can find plenty of places to spend.
we also been on this SEH report that there was a roof issue of some sort, that they've seen it, it's in the future for us, so we'd be a fool not to look at having the funds for it at that time.
well, in this 20, we'll put about 60-ish in the capital fund, so.
It's okay to be a little presumptive, so you're not spending it and you're not all shocked when you have to pay the bill. It's nice to have a little bit
You know,
of.
you hate to take it from the taxpayer when you're not gonna use it, I get that, but also the sticker shock is a big deal too.
Yeah, I mean, particularly like the conservation center, you need to keep putting stuff back in that capital fund to keep updating.
Correct me if I'm wrong, had we received the ARPA funds, we probably would have had to went out for, what's the amount you have to bond for? So for the boiler system, if we were to update that.
Just update the boiler.
No, what do you have to go out for a special bond for? What's the amount?
We talked about this with the jail, and I don't remember what it was.
Like 500,000.
Yeah,
Might have been.
it was a lower threshold than I thought,
But we'd be bonding for that.
yeah.
Anyways, all right, moving along, item number 14 is committee reports.
I can go first. Monday, Scott and I had union negotiations. We did settle those at the 5.5, the 1 year, only 1 year contract. Last in the 1-on-1 is still the second of those. They wanted to do a 3-year contract with the last 2 years of the wages being open. And I know, because I think that was the way he was trying to protect his job. And I wanted him to go back to recertification. So it was a long day, but I thought it was successful with the secondary road. We settled on that, and then there was a lot of language change that was done in there that Jamie wanted done to make things a little more simple, that we did. And that was about
Simpler and more transparent.
Yeah, more transparent. There was one place where it was gonna actually maybe the change is gonna cost us some money, but it's also gonna make it where we can utilize those people more for some transfers, where we generate more money. So there is probably very much a plus here.
The third call, their pay will offset the money they're making in transports.
Wednesday is conference board, and one thing I will tell you that is not what part of what I did. TADC, Temporary Development Corporation, had their annual meeting on last Tuesday night also, and DMAC was down and did a presentation on their project in Temple, and I will tell you, if you want to see the some of the scheduling and stuff on it, it's very impressive. I think this is going to be a very big plus for the region.
So they can draw from Shelby County, or where they come from?
From the areas they're going to come from right now is Coon Rapids, Banning, ITM, Audubon, Exira, And they'll probably pull some out of Carroll too, and also possibly out of West Side. That's to start with, and they're doing trades. They're also gonna have a CNA class in there due to manning the location. And after, the first year will be what they call a exploratory academy. So what those people will do is take the general basics, then they go back the second year, and they will be able to transfer those credits over into the regular, whatever one they decided. So they don't have to decide that for sure on that first thing. And eventually, there'll probably be adult high classes. So yeah, I'll just pass it on to you guys and look at. I do want this back though. And, okay, and then this week, tomorrow I'll be tied up most of the day with ISAC scholarship interviews. And then Debbie Durham is going to be in the area. I was planning on trying to get to that. I may get to a short while in Townsend, that's all. I will not be the one in Carroll. And then Thursday is the statewide supervisor meeting. That's my week and I'm sticking to it.
Last week I was unions with Gene on Monday. Conference board on Wednesday. This week, tomorrow I have RSVP and landfill meeting and second judicial district on Friday.
Since I wasn't here last week, I'll catch up a little bit. On the 25th, I joined in with Carrie via Zoom and we did Crawford County presentation she made about changing of the financing. That went very well. And I'm sure she's got a plan organized for us, both sides. So and they were very receptive to it. And on the 26th, I had a Zoom call with Iowa Workforce. In the short version of it, in 2014, during the Obama administration, Iowa Workforce was given a federal mandate to change the way they work. That is now finally getting to the final end. They had to submit plans to the state of Iowa. There were 9 regions. 6 out of the 9 submitted the plan and then they were rejected. 2 were added as provisional, 1 was approved. We made a return calls of why we were rejected. We were basically stonewalled and given the answer that here's the new form, fill it out, with no explanation. So I spent several phone calls last week with several legislators and a few senators, trying to get to the bottom of this, why this was being stonewalled. A lot of them were, not a lot of them, all of them were surprised. They had no idea what was going on. Late last Friday, we did get notification that ours will be moved to a provisional status at that point. So evidently some leverage got put on somewhere. We think that they don't want 9 regions, that we think that the state wants 2, and they're trying to drag their feet around until they get it. So that's an ongoing process. Then on the 2nd, I did the conference board on Wednesday here for a very short period. This upcoming week, tomorrow, I will have CADC, the Highway 30 Coalition. We'll be meeting with Debbie Durham. I'll have a luncheon with Debbie Durham tomorrow. Then I will be having a town, is that next? Is it tomorrow?
So,
Tomorrow.
Debbie Durham?
Yeah. That's I thought I had that. Right?
Carrollton, right?
Yes, yes. Then on I think Wednesday here, I have no, on Tuesday also, and then on Tuesday night, I have another Iowa Town Hall with the Iowa workforce. It starts at 5:30. That'll probably be a 3-hour meeting. That's all via Zoom. I'll be attending that. And then Wednesday, I'll be going to the statewide, is it Wednesday or Thursday?
Thursday.
Thursday, be going to the statewide. That is it for me this week.
I can go next. Last week, Wednesday, had the conference board meeting. This week, I'm gonna go to the CADC deal with Debbie Durham on Tuesday. Thursday, we'll have the statewide supervisor. Last week, I forgot to add, I also did the newspaper radio. I did a walk through the jail and a conversation with SCH. That is it. Conversation is just about our next steps, starting when we're gonna meet via Zoom and things like that, getting a meeting set up. So nothing in detail.
So when is that?
We have the first one set up for the 25th via Zoom. We're not gonna have it come up. It's on a Friday.
Why do people have meetings on Fridays?
Because
You know?
they didn't ask.
Uh-huh.
They didn't ask me.
It's the only day that's free
I
anymore.
would have said no.
Well,
For my Friday morning.
I mean,
Is there time on that stuff?
But we can't all be attending to those. It would be a public meeting.
Oh, no, that's fine.
what was that?
This first one is just to start setting up when they're gonna come and do the whole board presentation. This isn't a presentation, like, if we have more than.
We don't have to
two-
go in those.
I thought it
Oh,
was
this is on the 25th?
Yes.
I thought this was the schematic design milestone review. Is that what it is?
Let me double check with John.
Okay.
I took it too, that was just a couple of people.
Perfect, thank you.
That's fine with me.
But if it is some big,
I mean,
obviously, we're not gonna make any decisions without talking to the board first, so. Okay.
John has always had those, things, so he kind of get what your
Mhm.
thoughts are, so he make sure he's covered bases.
So last week, after the meeting here in the afternoon, we had a lengthy meeting with Board of Health Chairman and myself and the Stevens Group. We basically laid out the assessment and then we had time to review it throughout the week, go over it, and then on Friday, we met again with any kind of things that we had questions about. John sent the assessment to Courtney. You got that on Friday. So from there, it'll go out to the Board of Supervisors. And it's going to be released all at the same time because the stakeholders that are involved. And so that there's the crosstalk gets minimized. Everybody's got it the same.
Well, and I was told to forward it to Ed Smith, but is he still there? Or is he retired yet? Or
No, he's
No, he's
still
still there.
I even have an email address for him, but
Yeah, I might have the same email address. But yeah, I'll have to give you the green light to do that.
He
Because
told
everybody's-
me to in the meet, and whoever sent me the email says please forward to.
Yeah.
I'm glad that I didn't, because if
Yeah.
I would have read the email, I would have said it. Yeah, let me know.
And they set up, as far as their delivery time, they said they're gonna be here on the 22nd. And after they had set up the presentation time, we realized that the 21st is President's Day. And we're not gonna have a meeting on the 21st, so it'll have to be the 22nd. So I had already reserved the Ed Center for the presentation. So I guess we'll have a meeting. If anybody has, after I send it out, or Courtney sends it out, if anybody has any questions about it, get a hold of me. If you have any, it's very detailed, and it's what I want to say, very it has a lot of support of facts, a lot of factual information on there, studies that have been done, and those are actually footnoted, so that if you have any questions about some of the numbers, they're supported. And so, it's been requested that we go ahead and talk with Ed Smith prior to the meeting, so we'll be having that conversation with him prior to the meeting on the 22nd. So I'm assuming that we'll probably be releasing it this week. We're 2 weeks away from the annual, the presentation of it. So I don't know if we want to get it out too soon, but we want to have enough time so that everybody gets a chance to look at it and go through it. It's a pretty easy read, and it's interesting. But we'll just keep moving forward on that. On Wednesday, had the assessor public hearing, and this week, I'm sure there'll be more stuff with the Carroll County Public Health Assessment, but the state supervisors meeting on Thursday as well. That's it.
Sure.
With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
There's been a motion. There's been a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion approved. We are adjourned. Everybody run. It is 12:20.